3, 2. Good evening, Canby. Welcome to, I guess, another fun-filled evening here with the City Council. Tonight, we're starting our agenda with a work session to discuss the Transit Master Plan update, and I believe Todd's in charge of that this evening. Good evening, Todd.
Todd's in charge.
You get to see me a lot tonight. I'm sorry about that. Apologize, but it is what it is. So tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about where we're at with the Transit Master Plan. As you may remember, it's been a long time, but last year we went out for RFP to get a contract to renew our Transit Master Plan. The Transit Master Plan needs to be updated about every 5 to 7 years. It is what ODOT expects us to use when we apply for grants to tell us how to figure out where we're going. It also allows us to go out to the citizens and the businesses and ask them what transit's doing right, what it's not doing right, and what they want to see. We're about midway through that process right now, and we selected Jarrett Walker and Associates through the RFP process. What's interesting is they did our last master plan, so that worked out pretty well. So they're going to come up here in a minute and present to you. I did want to talk real quick about some of the challenges we're facing in transit. It's the same challenges everybody is facing. On the agenda tonight in the council meeting, you will see the renewal for our contract for the contractor. It represents about a 25% increase in costs over a 3-year period. Wow. I've been talking to my partners in transit, and everybody's seeing the same thing. Wages are going up, costs are going up, and so everything is getting more expensive. This same contract, we used to do this just 4 years ago when I started, was about $60 an hour. We're up to $92 an hour. And by the end of this 3-year period, we'd be at $99 an hour. Unfortunately, the grants and the payroll tax do not keep pace at 25%. So I'm hoping by the time we hit the 3rd year, payroll tax will have increased enough and we'll see enough increase in grants to properly cover that 3rd year. If not, we'll be looking at service reductions or changes in our service because we aren't bringing in as much money as we're seeing increase in costs. But that's just the reality. Again, everybody's facing the same reality. We're not unique. One of the things that Jarrett Walker's and Associates are doing is they're looking at where we're going, where we should be going, what's better for the system, how do we keep it at its current levels, and if things do turn around, which we all hope they will, where do we go in the future? So that's what they're here to talk about a little bit tonight. So I will bring up Alvaro, and he's going to take you through a PowerPoint and talk to you about what they see so far.
Great. Thanks, Todd. Good evening.
Good afternoon. Can I have the presentation, please? Hi. My name is Alvaro Caviedes. I work for Jarrett Walker & Associates. We are a very small firm based in Portland, Oregon, and we work in transit planning projects all over the U.S., small agencies and big agencies. So before I jump into the content of the presentation, I just want to talk about the process of today, a little bit of the agenda. And also, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to interrupt me. I'm happy to answer. Or you can hold your peace until the end, where we have time to also answer these questions. I'll try to keep it brief, too. I know you have a long night ahead. So today, I'm going to be presenting the team, telling you what we're doing, what's our process. I'm going to tell you, or my colleague Brenda, who is in the call too virtually, she's going to run through the public engagement process, how we have been talking with the community and what we have heard from them. And then I'm going to present you some of the things that we're going to ask the public in the future in the second phase of engagement. So who is in this team? We are in this project, the Transit Master Plan, which I'm going to refer as TMP throughout the presentation. We are 3 firms, Jarrett Walker & Associates, Enviro Issues, they are helping us with the public engagement, and Tool Design, they are helping us with the capital and infrastructure assessment. Jarrett Walker & Associates, as I mentioned, we have been working throughout several cities in the US, but relevant to Canby are these 3 projects. In 2017, my colleague Michelle, she worked on the TMP for the City of Canby. Out of this document came out a lot of very interesting things like the Canby Loop and service in the weekend and evenings. We have also worked for the city of Portland in also the redesign of their network. Their plan is called Forward Together, and it's relevant for the city of Canby because of Oregon City. A lot of TriMet routes are going there and connecting to an existing Canby route. Finally, we have worked in Wilsonville as well. I think like almost a year ago, we finished that project. It was also a transit master plan, and it's relevant because one of the routes from this system is connecting the city of Canby. So what is a transit master plan? We're basically asking a basic question, where buses should go and how often should they run. In this TMP, we're going to think about new services. Where should we add new services? Also, like which routes we should improve, which routes should have more frequency or longer hours during the day or more service in the weekend. This TMP is going to be a guide for CAT, or the City of Canby Transportation Transit Agency, for the next 5 years. As I mentioned, the last one we did was in 2017. So a lot of things have changed since then. The pandemic happened. A lot of the travel patterns in the city and in the region changed. So people are not traveling as often in the peak hour as they used to do. More people are traveling in the middle of the day. More people are traveling at night. Also, this is an opportunity to ask people what are their needs and values. This is a great opportunity to create a new transit system that's going to be useful and reliable for the people that use it. So how do we get there? So first of all, as Todd was mentioning, the cost of service are going to increase. We're going to help them navigate this part of the project and trying to, with existing resources and with the extra costs, try to design a service that's very close to what it is today for the next months. Then we're going to work on the TMP, the 5-year vision, where we're going to, based on the community values and needs and what we find with data and talking to the public, we're going to see which are the transit priorities and how this can be reflected in the transit master plan. But while we were walking through this process throughout this year, we find out that it will be very relevant if we look a little bit beyond and we develop a 10-year vision. This is a 10-year vision of how the transit will look in the region, specifically the city of Canby and how it connects to other cities in 10 years. And then we're going to prioritize what to do in the first 5 years and what is left we can continue to do in the coming years. So let me talk you through our timeline, how we are following our process. We started this project last year around November, December of 2023. We started working on existing conditions. This is basically looking at the existing market, local and regional market, who is using transit, who is not using transit. We look also at how the routes are working today and how it connects to other transit systems in the region. Right now, we're finishing the public engagement phase 1, where we're asking people about what are their values and needs. In the month of March, we also met with CAT, and based on some things we heard from the public and things we found with the data, we sat with them and started to draw some alternatives, things that we can show the public. We're sharpening our tools and getting this ready. When these are ready, we're going to go back, talk to the public in the month of June and tell them what do they think about these alternatives. While we do that, we're also going to start looking at the capital and infrastructure changes or needs that need to happen to make this transit master plan reality. And then we will write a draft transit master plan. When that's ready, we will come back here, present it to you, see if we got it right. We also will go back to the public again and ask them if we got it right. And then by the end of September, we'll have a document that will be ready for adoption. So let me talk now a little bit about context of how is the system working today. We have been looking at different data sources. We have been reviewing census data to understand where the transit is, where the transit market is. We have been also looking at data sources like cell phone data sources to understand when people are traveling, where are they going to, and how often are they making these trips using any transportation mode. This let us know kind of like the flow, so like where people in Canby are going to, or people visiting Canby, where are they coming from. We have also used data provided by the City of Canby CAD, the transit agency, in terms of where people are using the routes today, which are the most popular boardings, how often are they using the routes, what time of the day. And we have also been talking to the public. So on one hand, we are looking at data, and on the other hand, we're also talking to them and listening to what are their needs and how do they feel about the system today. So In the screen, you can see a map. These are the transit routes in the city of Canby. Each line represents a route, and the color represents the frequency of the route. These colors are going to be presented throughout the whole presentation, so just keep them in mind. The dark blue represents a route that comes every 30 minutes in the middle of the day, and the light blue line is a route that comes every 60 minutes, so once an hour. You can see that there are two routes in the city of Canby. The loop, the circulator, it runs every 30 minutes clockwise. And then we have the 99X, that is a route that connects the city of Canby to Woodburn and Oregon City. There are also, this is another map that shows the region. There are other two routes that connect the city of Canby, provided by other agencies. These are shown by these lines with this pinky color, maybe gray in your screen. These are routes that come every 90 minutes in the middle of the day. We have one route, the Smart 3X. It's a route that comes from Wilsonville and connects Canby. And then we have the Molalla route that connects Molalla to Canby. And now, this is just to say that Canby and the routes in Canby are part of a whole system. There is a network where somebody from Canby can go all the way to Salem, all the way to Portland, all the way to Hillsborough. There is a system that there is an opportunity to do this. The problem is that the routes are very infrequent and all these trips are very hard to make. It takes a very long time. So if, for example, if you want to go to the city of Portland downtown, you have to take your Canby Route 99X to Oregon City and then transfer to one of the routes from TriMet. If you are lucky, you don't have to wait for the next bus, and you just can jump into the next one that's available. If you are not lucky, you can wait up to an hour for the next route. So this just makes it very hard for people to travel around. And why is frequency so important? I'm going to mention this like a lot during this presentation, and it's basically because of three main things. When you have a route that is very frequent, it means that you are going to wait a very few times for that route. So if you show up in a stop and you know the route has a frequency of 15 minutes, you know that you don't have to wait longer for 15 minutes for that route. But if the route comes every hour, you may have to wait 1 hour in the bus. If it's raining, it's going to be pretty bad. So frequency means better. It's going to be more useful and reliable for people. Other thing is that frequent routes facilitate connections. So when you, for example, if you go to Oregon City and transfer to a frequent route, you don't have to wait for a long time because the route is going to be there. And the other thing is that if a frequent route is going to also help with disruptions. So you can think of the 99X, right? And then the 99 highway right there. So there is construction, a lot of congestion. If you have an infrequent route and that route gets late, then somebody has to wait a very long time for the next bus to come. Instead of like an hour, now has to wait 2 hours for the next bus. And they will just find another option to move. They will ask for like a taxi, an Uber, ask a friend to like ride them to where they need to go. And then they stop using the service. And this is, and I'm going to explain this also in other words. So for people who don't use a transit a lot, you can imagine, like, picture this in your mind. You can imagine a gate at the end of your driveway that only opens once an hour. So if you have a gate that only opens once an hour, you have to plan your life around it, right? So if you want to go to work, you need to know when that gate is going to open. If you want to be on time to your work, you want to know that gate opens at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., but you just have to plan your life around it. And that's how like basically frequency impacts people. You have to plan your life around a schedule of a very infrequent route. If this gate opens once a minute, it means that you just can be more spontaneous. If you need to go to the grocery store, you don't have to plan your day. Just jump in your car and you know the gate is going to open. If you have, on the other hand, if you have a frequent bus, you know it's going to be there when you need it. So you can be more spontaneous and you will have a very reliable and useful service. So that's why frequency is very important. And we can see it here in this map. This map shows ridership or boardings. The dot represents how many people are boarding that stop. The bigger the dot, more people are using that stop. You can see that the loop is very popular. It works really well because it's a small loop. You can do the whole thing in less than 30 minutes. And it's also very frequent. It comes almost every 30 minutes for most of the day. You can see the major spots are like downtown Canby, Fred Meyer, Safeway, the Canby Adult Centers. These are like places that people mostly are frequenting. But there is a risk with this. As you may know, the city is also going through the comprehensive plan, thinking about the expansion of the ground boundary. This will mean that CAT also may need to expand this loop, which means it's going to become less useful. Less people are going to use it because it's going to be so long, so that it's going to take them everywhere to go where they need to go. So while we're thinking about this transit master plan, we need to think about how to adapt this so it brings people to these places they need to go, but in a reasonable amount of time, so they keep using the bus. So now let's talk a little bit about the regional market, because this is a very important piece of this process. This is a chart that shows the number of trips it shows the number of trips that are coming to Canby from other cities. The longer the bar means more people are going to that city. So, sorry, this shows where people from Canby are traveling to. So the longer the bar represents more people are going to that city. We can see, and in any transportation mode. This includes not only bus, but also driving, taking a taxi. It doesn't include walking or biking. So we can see at the top of the chart, we can see most of the people today are going to Wilsonville, going to Portland, Oregon City, Tualatin, Woodburn. We can also ask a similar question, but in the other way. People who are coming to Canby, where are they coming from? And we can see a similar pattern. They are coming from Oregon City, Portland, Wilsonville, Tualatin, Woodburn. And we can also ask this question about how many trips are happening throughout different times of the day. And this is this chart. This chart shows the number of trips at different hours of the day for different cities. We can see that most of the people are traveling in peak hours, but also in the middle of the day, there are a lot of trips happening. Today, as I mentioned, the 99X offers service to Oregon City and Woodburn. You can see that Oregon City has a very big demand today. A lot of people want to go there. Woodburn, when you compare it to other cities around, not so much. So this is a great opportunity to evaluate this and see if we're spending the resources where we should be doing it. Like if you compare it to other cities like Portland, Tualatin, Wilsonville, maybe this is an opportunity to think about creating some service with extra resources that can go to these cities. So we have been showing this data. We have been also asking people, the community, about what are their needs, how do they feel about the network today, what should be doing, or what is it working today. We have been going to ask them, and now my colleague Brenda Martin is going to talk about how is that going.
Thank you, Alvaro. Hi, everyone. I'm hoping you can hear me okay.
We can.
Okay, wonderful. So my name is Brenda Martin. I'm from Enviro Issues, and I'm leading the engagement on this project. So here you see a chart that's kind of summing up our public engagement milestones for this project. This project kicked off in January and will be done in October. We've done about half of the engagement milestones. We have been updating the website. We have led the first community survey. We have held the stakeholder workshop, and we're currently in the process of scheduling the stakeholder interviews. And then we will be also doing a second survey later this summer, some in-person events, and finally doing an online open house for the draft TMP. So first I'll share about our community survey. We launched this survey in March of this year. The survey had questions asking people for their feedback on a few things. First off, we wanted to understand their travel patterns to make sure that it did line up with the data that Jarrett Walker and Alvaro's team has been using. We also wanted to gain some insight on how CAT could improve service to better fit the needs of both the residents and the visitors of Canby. We asked questions about which locations were most important for CAT to serve, both within the city locally, but also really focusing on those regional destinations that Alvaro is just talking about and how we might want to prioritize those in the future. So the survey was open for a little bit longer than a month. We offered the survey both in English and in Spanish, and we had 87 total respondents to the survey, 7 of which were respondents who answered in Spanish. We were able to share the survey both on the CAT website and on their social media platforms. And we did go and ride on the buses for 2 days during the during the survey comment period on March 20th and 21st. And I will say we probably received about half of our respondents from riding the bus. So we're happy to report that a lot of our survey respondents who are transit riders.
We have a question, Brenda.
Thank
Oh,
you.
great.
Thank you. On your survey, 87, for that survey, how does that compare? Because 87 doesn't seem like much of a response on a survey at all. And was the survey reached out to, say, our industrial park area, Stanton Furniture, and those places to get a survey from those people? Because many of those people that work there don't live here, you know, but 87 doesn't seem like a lot of people. So I guess my question is how does that compare to other surveys?
Great question. It really depends on we were really trying to focus on gaining responses from transit riders, which is how we focus most of our outreach, which is why we really look to social media and the website and sharing with our transit drivers. I can understand where that feels like a low number, but I think in terms of making sure we heard from the voices we were hoping to elevate in the survey, we feel pretty good about the 87 respondents. And this is only, to add to the more robust, hopefully, summer outreach we'll be having this summer. This was in March. It was a fairly rainy month. So I think, all those kind of attributed to our response rate. I don't think we did reach out to the industrial park specifically, but that's a great idea and certainly something we can focus on the second survey.
I just could add to that. When we did this for the city of Wilsonville, we had for the first survey we had like over 100, if I remember correctly. And we did face a challenge with the weather at this time. So we had different strategies. So we did 2 days of onboard survey, and that really helped because we met with a lot of riders today, and we got a lot of responses there. And as Brenda was mentioning, we also have other ways to reach out to the public. So we have a stakeholder workshop. We're conducting some interviews with different groups just to listen to their specific needs to try to have a more comprehensive input from the public.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question. So do we know, Todd, how many riders we had during this time frame of the survey between March 11th and April 15th?
I can find out. Heidi can find out.
Okay.
But I will tell you that we have run a number of surveys ourselves, and that's pretty typical for Canada.
80, like in that 80 to 100.
We've also reached out for, like, when we built a loop to the industrial parks, and they don't respond. It's really hard to get them to respond. I know Alvaro's team is reaching out, or somebody is reaching out to the chamber to see if they can get some contacts in the business community who would be willing to talk to them and interview them, but we have a lot of difficulty getting the business community to respond to these, but that's a pretty typical number for our surveys.
Is the survey, I assume the survey is offered up to the citizens of Canby too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and while we were doing the onboard surveying, we also tried to capture people outside of your city, like people using the service, the 99X in Woodburn, Oregon City, to kind of have that input too, because any change we make to this route will have an impact on them. But yeah, we're trying to be as comprehensive as possible with the tools we have.
Okay, no more questions? Okay, I will keep going. Thank you, Alvaro. Continue to please interrupt me since I cannot see the room. So a little bit about the 87 respondents who did take the survey. 60% of them were riding CAT at least once a week or at least a few times a month. So the majority of our respondents were at least people who take transit often and know the system. Most of the respondents tend to travel during the morning rush hour or fairly early in the morning. And we found this really interesting that almost half of the respondents do not have access to either a driver's license or a vehicle. So we were able to capture fairly transit-dependent survey respondents who offered their insight on CAT service. One interesting thing about our respondents, when asked if they preferred a shorter walk but a longer transit ride or a longer bus ride, they preferred a shorter walk. And we did kind of see that in the survey that people are looking for more opportunities to especially get on the loop or have places to get on and off the bus, probably to additional services. And then we had an open-ended question that asked respondents, over the next 5 years, what would they like to see? We're certainly hearing, again, more stops on the loop, mostly to new services like medical offices, hospitals, or schools. They're also interested in more service outside of Canby, which is really tied to that regional connections that we're hearing a lot about. And they mentioned Wilsonville, Aurora Airport, Salem. And then just overall improvement of the service and offerings of transit service. So both a better tracking app, better website and maps, and then better transit stop improvements.
So
You have a question, Brenda?
quick question, and again, this might be more for Todd. When we talk about more stops along the loop, my understanding is if someone is on the bus and they ask for a stop outside of the marked, already designated stop areas, the bus will stop?
No,
No, okay,
no, it's unfortunately that brings in a liability.
okay.
Can you come to the
I
side?
disagree. It's a liability issue for us. If you start letting people off outside stops and people get hurt off outside stops,
Okay.
it becomes a liability issue. As to your other question, we had 8,625 riders.
So about
So about,
1%.
yeah, 1%.
Okay,
And that's for both service.
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Any other question?
No, don't think so. Thanks.
All right, and then one of the questions on the survey also asked respondents to offer if there were additional resources for transit service in CAT, how would they like to spend it? Here are kind of the options they had. The highest response was some Sunday service. So we know that Sunday service is very expensive to add, but nonetheless, obviously the community would love to ride transit on Sunday if it was offered. Another one was covering places that don't currently are served by CAT, and that kind of ties to Alvaro's work and kind of looking at new places we might be able to serve. And then the third one was longer hours of service, so people are looking to maybe ride the bus earlier in the day or even later at night, so having that longer span of service, and then more regional service for longer trips to other cities. And then we did ask them to tell us a little bit about where they found to be the most important places that people should be able to easily reach transit from Canby. And here you can see those top answers. Oregon City continues to be the #1 destination for those wanting to travel outside of Canby. Then we have downtown Portland, Clackamas, Wilsonville, and then Woodburn. So, CAT is already serving some of those places, but it looks like respondents would like to continue to find easier opportunities to reach other cities around Canby.
One question, Brenda.
So looking at this particular slide, so it seems to me that for Oregon City, Clackamas, and Wilsonville, is this about just increased frequency to those locations to make it easier? Or, define easier.
I'm going to hold that answer because I'm going to talk about that in more detail in a few slides later. But
Okay.
I'll come back to that.
Okay, then my second question on this particular slide is in regards to getting to Portland, or specifically downtown. Wouldn't that be better of a service for TriMet from Oregon City and Wilsonville versus us running?
So I can answer that a little bit.
And you know how much I love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the problem stems from the creation of the Orange Line. Before the Orange Line, the cab bus would meet with the 99X and the 33, and they would take you straight downtown. The 99X still does, but not to the same frequency. I think it still runs certain times of the day, but the 33 no longer goes downtown. It takes you to the MAX station and then comes back. So we used to have folks that would ride the 99, get off and get the 33, go straight downtown. Now, you have to take the 99 to the 33 to the max to get downtown. Most people don't want to do that, so they just don't bother with the 99. And they either drive to the max station or they drive to where they catch the 33. So what people are asking for is to be able to go straight to the max, to
And
go straight
you and I have had that conversation, and I know it's a jurisdiction.
It's also a massive expense, because we receive, once we exit the city of Canby, we receive zero funding. All our funding comes from inside the boundaries of Canby.
And then it's deadheading back.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
I love that you knew the word deadheading. I'm very impressed. Okay, so this is the last slide on the survey. This is just a little bit about the demographics of those who did respond to our survey. While, most people were white, we did hear from 22% of people who identified as Hispanic or Latino. 17% of our respondents also spoke Spanish at home. Just want to share those at the same time. The majority of respondents were older, 65 years or older, but we did have, we did have respondents from kind of every age group, so we felt that we did have a good representation of kind of different age groups and what they might be looking for. Of the folks who shared their income, the majority made under $75,000 a year, and then 24% of respondents identified as living with a disability. Of those 24%, 75% were living with a disability that impaired their physical or mobility options, which is understandable for transit riders and something to certainly think about as we move forward with planning the TMP. And then, yes, I shared that 17% spoke Spanish at home, which was great for offering the Spanish survey. Okay, other questions about the survey, our respondents, or what we heard?
One question.
Yeah, on the survey, did we contact, for instance, Hope Village, Canby Adult Center, Marquee Care, any of those places where we have a very high density senior population? Because I know at times they have difficulties, getting their buses to locations.
Yes, we were able to contact those organizations, and we did offer the link to the website and to the survey.
Yeah, and then Brenda mentioned, we also doing interviews, and Hope Village is one of those groups we're talking to, and they also participated in the stakeholder workshop that Brenda's going to talk about now.
Great.
Okay. Other questions about the survey? Okay, so I'll go ahead and share about our stakeholder workshop. This was held on March 11th during the survey comment period. This was an intensive 3-hour workshop, really focused on those key stakeholders who might represent communities that tend to be transit dependent or tend to use transit. So we invited a lot of the nonprofits in town, the school, a lot of churches and other places that have services that they offer to the community. We had about 15 stakeholders attend the event, and we really focused on considerations for service, both for local and regional transit service. So the workshop included different exercises for participants. We did a short presentation, offered some live polling to kind of understand the representation in the room, and then we got to kind of play a game, a bit of a service exercise where participants had different lengths of pipe cleaner to represent kind of exactly what Alvaro was talking about earlier, different frequencies of service. So while you might have a shorter transit line, it might be able to operate more frequently than one that might go farther out of Canby, and you can kind of really play with those trade-offs. So what we really heard from our attendees were that though many of them were not riders, they did wish that they knew what riders wanted. So we did understand that we did not have necessarily riders in the room, but those that maybe represented riders or worked for organizations with more transit-dependent populations. Most made little to no changes to the loop. So the loop is feeling like it's really serving the communities it needs, but there was a lot of focus again on the of regional services. There was a lot of discussion about how the future needs of multifamily residential developments and potentially tolling on I-5 could impact service and help transit service to places like Wilsonville and new places that we might want to connect with Canby. And then really our key takeaway for any good stakeholder workshop is getting people to really understand how hard of a decision it is to balance both frequency and service in smaller cities like Canby. It's a really difficult trade-off, and it's always nice to have people kind of walk away understanding that it's really hard to kind of balance them. Any questions on the stakeholder workshop?
Well, we have one question.
Yeah, so the stakeholder workshop, when was it held and what time? Or what time was it held in the day?
Sure, it was March 11th, and it was held from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Oh, okay. So it sounds like you're going to do more of these outreach things similar to this, correct, with the community?
We'll be doing more, more outreach events.
Not
Okay.
a stakeholder workshop per se, but we're doing another public survey. We're doing tabling events. And we have two more phases of this. So one in June and another one in August.
Okay, because I was just going to throw out the suggestion that if you're going to do these sort of things, that it might make sense to build it into the route. So if there are people who take the bus through the route and you want to get people who ride the bus to come to it, it might be good to create like a special route to say, hey, we're doing this thing. If you need a ride to the thing, this is the route to be on, and we'll stop at that location.
So there isn't any good conference rooms, but we did offer dial-a-ride service for folks who wanted to
attend.
get to the police department.
Okay,
So we didn't have any takers, but the offer was out there.
okay, very good.
All right, great. And this, we'll get to your question a little bit about our future engagement plans. So like I mentioned and Alvaro mentioned, we are currently holding interviews with some of our key stakeholders. We actually had a interview with Hope Village today, and there's another one planned tomorrow with the Canby Adult Center. We're going to be meeting with Bridging Cultures as representatives of the Latinx community and the school district, as well as the business representative. We'll be starting at the chamber, as Todd mentioned, and trying to just understand the needs of businesses and their visitors. And then the next phase of outreach is starting in June. It will be kicking off kind of early June, and the survey will be open for, again, about a month. But now that the weather is nicer, we are looking to have some in-person events, both tabling events at the First Thursday event, potentially finding other opportunities to kind of be out where people are so that we can get increase of the visibility of the TMP and certainly start getting feedback on some of these alternatives that Jarrett Walker and Alvaro's team will be presenting. It's always important to capture the needs of the community, but we want to always make sure to spend most of the time capturing people's preferences on the alternatives, since they could impact them in the long run when service changes.
Any
So
questions?
that is it for me. Other questions about our engagement plan?
Great. Thank you, Brenda.
All right, thank you.
So, so we have a new phase of engagement coming. Now I'm going to walk you through what are we going to ask, what information are we going to be showing people to get their reaction. So this map shows the loop. This is how it works today. Again, 30 minutes in the middle of the day. It runs in one direction. When we met in March with Todd and Heidi from CAD, we started to sketch some ideas, and we realized that the loop works really well today, so why should we change it that much? The only way we could see that we could improve it is by making it two directions. So if you go from point A to B, and then you want to return to your point A, let's say your house, you don't have to go all the way around the loop again to get there. You just have to take the bus in the other direction from a straight shot. Another minor change, these maps I'm showing, these are not proposals. These are just sketches we're going to show the public just to get their reaction and see if they like them or how can we improve them. So these are not final, no proposals, just ideas. And one of these ideas was also cutting one of the deviations of the loop that takes around 3 minutes and takes people out of their way. It's on the east side, on the west side of the map, is that loop that takes people to the industrial area close to the police department. It's a deviation that costs like some time and takes people out of their way. It's close, like how we are drawing it in this sketch. By cutting this, we are not asking people to walk very much, but for people who are not able to walk, this may be a longer walk. So we're going to ask the public and see how they react to this idea. The 99X today goes to Woodburn, but it doesn't go all the way to the downtown Woodburn. It stops at Weimar. In Weimar, it meets with other routes, the circulators from the city of Woodburn, and the chariots, the Salem route that takes people to Salem. But this is how, if you look at the map, it drops people at Weimar. They have to transfer to another route if they want to go to downtown or if they want to go to the big shopping mall. Well, if people want to go shopping, or there are like a lot of job opportunities there where people can work. But it's just very inefficient because it's very far away. What we're proposing is extending the route. Instead of stopping at Weimar, we're stopping all the way in the downtown. We have talked to the planner, the city of Woodburn, and this could potentially work. They have the space to have that extra bus. The only thing is that we won't stop at Weimar anymore, but we won't miss any of the connections we do today. All the connections in downtown with chariots are going to still happen. Yeah.
Is your other chart showed Woodburn as being one of the low usage?
Yeah.
Why would we increase the route in Woodburn when we're not hardly serving Woodburn anyway?
That's a great question. So what we're proposing is making it more useful by going to downtown where more jobs, opportunities, more stuff is located there. And second of all, because we're making the route longer, the 99X, it means it's going to be way more expensive. So it's better if we think about splitting the 99X in two. One segment that goes from the city of Canby to Woodburn, running every 60 minutes for the whole day. That's a little bit lower than today, even if peak hour. And then having the segment from the city of Canby to Oregon City, running every 30 minutes throughout the whole day, which is going to be for the whole day and not just peak hour, which is going to be a very big improvement. We heard, the ridership of the Woodburn segment is not as strong as the ridership in the segment to Oregon City, but still we saw in the data that it still is one of the top, it's in the top 5 destinations for some people, and also when we talked to the public, it was still in the top, the destination of Woodburn. So what we're proposing is splitting it, and we are going to ask the public about this because by splitting the route, we may cause some issues for people traveling from Woodburn to Oregon City in one seat ride or vice versa. Now that we split the route in two, they may have to transfer in the city of Canby. So we're going to present this and see the reactions.
If I may add as well, one of the issues we have with where we currently stop is it's a parking lot in Weimar. There's no facilities there, there's no bus stations there, it's just the middle of a parking lot. Sometimes that is challenging for us to navigate because there's cars or trucks parked there, and then we have to loop back on to get around. Whereas downtown, there's actual break facilities for drivers, bathrooms for drivers. It's a better location for the drivers themselves.
Okay, so I assume with any of these changes as being proposed, we'll have a budget that corresponds with those.
These are just suggestions. Right?
Yeah, but if we do get to that point,
Oh, yeah.
our recommendations, we'll have a budget because budgets are tight.
Exactly.
And we know there's a lot of empty buses out there.
Exactly. And that's a good point because when you see empty buses, it's because they are very demand-oriented. So you can think about a peak hour route where people are going from their house to work. So in the morning, you see all the people going in one direction, but not in the other. But in the PM hour, you see the opposite direction, like most of the people taking that bus in that direction and not in the other. But by making the bus useful to most locations, so if we make a bus that stops in a lot of things, like downtown Woodburn, connecting the city of Canby, more people will find the uses at different times of the day, not just during the rush hour. And yeah, we are very mindful of a budget. We're thinking about a 10-year vision. We're going to ask the public which of these things are more important that we can accomplish within 5 years. And we are going to, and in this moment, we're sharpening our pencils and looking at how much these things are going to cost. And based on that, we can see what is realistic to do.
And so, Todd, on the funding side, is it Canby that funds these routes to, like the mayor was talking about, so
Yeah.
we fund it to Oregon City, Wilsonville, and Woodburn, right?
Yeah,
Canby
but
does.
we are providing for the citizens of Canby connections, is the way we look at it, right? We're not providing, I know we technically are providing services to Woodburn. They have their own bus service, but we're trying to give people ability to come into Canby to work, shop, and the people to leave Canby to work and shop. We have a number of people, when you look at our Woodburn service, a lot of those people are actually coming into the city from Woodburn.
Yeah.
We have a number of people that shop in Canby that we pick up on the route to, from Woodburn.
Okay.
But you're correct, as soon as we leave, as soon as we cross that bridge, there is no funding. Same thing, as soon as you cross territorial, there's no funding. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank
But I'll
you.
just add in really quick to that. It's very important, to know that we have these regional routes. It's a big benefit for citizens of Canby because there are a lot of things that are not in the city, like a major hospital, colleges. So by having these connections, we can facilitate these trips and opportunities for people who cannot drive.
Go ahead, Scott.
So, Todd, I see past my house quite a bit, South Clackamas Transit.
Yeah.
Do they pick anybody up in Canby and take them to where they need to go, Wilsonville?
Yeah.
They share the
Yeah,
same
South-
spots with you guys?
So South Clackamas runs Malala.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
They go back and forth.
Yeah.
So they go Ivy and then they go around the backside of Canby out Ivy.
Yeah.
So, but there's only a few stops we share with them.
Okay, but they,
We don't go into Malala.
do they have a stop in Canby?
They have multiple stops.
Okay.
there, Yeah. Same thing with Wilsonville. They come in to Canby, go out of
Yep.
Canby, down Cedar. They have multiple stops.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. So going back to your question, so today the 99X goes Canby to Oregon City, 30 minutes peak hour, 60 minutes in the middle of the day. And as we were like telling the mayor, we heard from the public and from data that there is a lot of interest to go beyond Oregon City. Like today, if you want to go to downtown Portland, you have to make so many transfers. Like take 99X, transfer Oregon City, transfer the Orange Line. It's very hard to use for people. So one of the proposals we're thinking is like extending all the way 99X, not all the way to Portland because that would be extremely expensive, but to something more realistic where like 99X can actually pull over, and that's in Milwaukee Transit Center, where it can connect to the Orange Line. This will mean that people now only have to transfer one time to the max, and the max is very frequent. Sometimes of the day, they come every like less than 10 minutes. So people get out of the 99X and they can just jump into the 99X to go to east of Portland or downtown Portland.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you brought up Max. So I think it's important to also look at the crime ratios. When Max moved into Sunnyside and when Max moved into Milwaukee, their crimes went through the roof. Okay, and so there's a lot of crime around the shopping center. There's a lot of crime now in Milwaukee. So now we're inviting, because people are going to get on those buses to come back this way. So I guess we're going to have to look at what were the crime increases at the Max stations, and do we want to bring that clientele potentially into Canby?
You can think about that. You can think of it as eyes on the street. The more people use transit, the safer it will feel for everybody, because there are more people looking at what things are going on. When we make a useful service like connecting to the Milwaukee Transit Center, this is going to be something that is going to call for a lot of people to use, because now the bus and transit becomes something that's achievable if they want to go to downtown Portland. So this means we are going to increase the ridership, thus more people using the system. And definitely there is a crime issue, but by having more people in the bus or in the MAX, more people being there is going to mean safe for everybody else.
Okay, well, it's just one thing, as we get more information, I'd like that crime index brought of the crime increase in the MAX stations, and as you extend that population out into the outlying areas, what potentially could that do to Canby?
I will tell you that Columbia County goes to the Max station and it has no impact on their crime.
Well, I do know, Todd, that the crime has increased significantly at Town Center and Milwaukee.
Okay.
So I
Counselor
think that data point that we are really, it's not that, I think that there's two different data points that we're looking at. It's that, does crime increase when there is a MAX station in the area? The real data point would be, is there a transit service that was not going to a MAX station that shifted to going to a MAX station? And did that then increase the crime in that area?
Very good.
My suspicion is that if it did, it was negligible because it's not a direct MAX station.
Well, we
Because-
need the information, though.
Exactly, but I think rather
I don't-
than looking
yeah.
at the data point to be, did crime go up where this MAX station now is? The real question is, did crime go up in this area when they went from point here to here to then go to a MAX station? I think that's really
So
what
I
we're
don't, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on this.
No, I
I'm running
understand.
short on time. I was at TriMet for 15 years and a Max manager for 7 years. And we hear this all the time. And the reality is, and with all due respect, the crime already exists. Max doesn't make crime. Yes, it becomes more visible, but the crime in these areas, the 72, which was there long before the green line ever showed up, was rife with crime. So it's not new crime, it's existing crime that is simply now more visible because we have MAX stations, so people tend to concentrate more.
Okay, we can talk offline about that because I served in the grand jury and we received a lot of really good information from law enforcement after Max went into
Sure.
Town Center.
All right, let's move on.
A debate for another evening.
We saw in the data, we heard from the public, surveys, stakeholder workshop, that there is a lot of interest on connecting Canby to Wilsonville with better service. Today, SMART, the Wilsonville agency, has a route, the 3X, that is very infrequent. Comes once an hour during the peak and almost every 90 minutes during the middle of the day. One of the things we're thinking about is duplicating the service. So Canby will have their own route that is going to overlap the service from the Wilsonville agency. That way the frequency increases and it becomes more useful for everybody else. Another benefit of this is that once you go to Wilsonville, this kind of like unlocks other destinations. Now you can, through other routes, other transfers, you can access to Tualatin, you can access to Tiger, all the way to Hillsborough or Beaverton or Hillsborough. Now let's talk a little bit, really quick, about this frequency throughout the day and the duration of the service. So the Canby loop, for most of the day, it runs every 30 minutes, but because it only has one driver, it needs to take breaks. Also, there is not enough resources to add another driver. So sometimes of the day, the frequency drops to almost 45 minutes. This means that if you are waiting for a bus that is going to come in 30 minutes, it may not happen because the driver is taking a break. Another thing is that service ends for the loop around 8 p.m. For the 99X, it ends around 11 p.m. Basically for people that are coming at night after working from Portland or Milwaukee or the other way around. The 99X also have around 30 minutes service during the rush hour, a.m. and p.m. But in the middle of the day, today, it has a 60-minute service. If we look at Saturdays, we see that the evening service kind of like switches between the loop and the 99X. Now the 99X goes until 10 p.m., which is extremely useful for people like traveling locally. But then for the 99X, it stops shy of like 7 p.m. So now people transferring to other cities in the region, now they cannot make this connection at night. The frequency in the middle of the day also drops for the 99X. Most of the time, 60 minutes in the hour or worse than that. So one of the things we're going to also ask the public, and we have also heard so far, is like, should we make these frequencies consistent? Should we span service in the evening, add more hours? And also we have heard, like, should we add service in Sunday? This is going to be really expensive because it's not just adding a driver. It means also adding a staff, operational staff, management, etc. So it's something we're going to ask, but being mindful that it's way more expensive. While we're doing this, our friends at Tool, the other firm that is in our team, they're working on assessing all the capital infrastructure and technological needs that are needed to make this plan reality. So they're working on this now, and this is going to be also part of the TMP. One of the things we're looking at also is amendments to the city code that can facilitate the implementation of the TMP, and also how to improve the communication with the customers. So next steps, very briefly, because we mentioned this before, we're going to go in our second phase of engagement in June. In July, we will have a draft. We will come here again to the City Council to show you what we have. And then we will back and talk to the public and ask them if we got it right. After we have that, we will have the final document that will be ready for adoption. Thank you so much for your attention. Any more questions?
I don't think so.
Pretty involved. Thank you.
I think I appreciate the update and let us know where we're at with this, and there's quite a bit here still yet to figure out and learn about to make good recommendations and whatnot, so Todd, you have your work cut out for you.
All
Yeah.
I need is money. Just give me money and I can do anything I want.
Well, and so,
I mean, realistically, service boils down to cost.
well,
So,
it does boil down to cost, but it also boils down to the monster that is TriMet, and you and I have been in those meetings. And
yeah.
I can't stress enough the displeasure of having TriMet be the pass-through.
Well, to be fair, that's the legislator.
No, I understand that, and I'm not trying to shoot them as a messenger, but it's still, there's gaps. And if transit's going to be successful, it is about frequency, and it is about connecting that last mile. And one of the things I like about running to the orange line is it does close that gap of that last couple miles to be able to use a resource that's billions in the making, so.
The problem with the orange line is the way TriMet designed that station, you can't stop at the orange line. You have to go all the way downtown to Milwaukee, downtown Milwaukee. Because they did not make it so you could go into that station, turn around and come back.
Yeah, there's a closer stop to Oregon City where we cannot stop. So we have to go to downtown Milwaukee.
It's unfortunate, but that was just the way they designed it.
It's amazing when government agencies talk to each other. Counselor Patton, you had a comment?
Yeah, I think for me, it's a chicken and the egg sort of thing, right? It's like the more you increase the routes and where they go and how often they run, the more people are going to use it, which then brings in more funding, right? Well, you have to then expend that money when there's low ridership to try and increase that. I don't know, I might be naive to this, but I dare say that there probably isn't any mass transit system in the United States that is solely funded by its ridership. It's always subsidized by some entities. And to me, it's a valuable service. And any way that we can try to make it work is beneficial to everybody as a whole. Because the population in Canby is going to continue to age. And I believe that there's a ton of people that use the dial-a-ride service, right?
Right.
And so, it's going to become more and more, there's going to become more and more of a draw on it as time goes on.
Looking at the data, we found that after the implementation of the loop, it became a really good service for the senior population.
Well, there we go.
So now they're shifting to that service. So if we make other useful service, they will also use it as it's available.
Okay.
Can we, there's still one more slide that I'd love to bring up and share and that's the last slide there where it's how close are people from transit, Maya?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, really quick,
I think she's got control.
Yeah, right there.
yeah, so these maps show how far are people from a stop. The dots represent 5 residents, so the more dots you see in this map, it means more people. Dots that are colored with a green color, they are within a quarter-mile walk from a transit stop, blue within a half a mile, and red over a half a mile. You can see that the loop provides very good coverage. Even like the red dots, they are not that far away. It's maybe extra 3 to 5 minutes to the closest stop. The only caveat is that as you think about expanding this boundary, it means more people are going to be farther and farther for the stop. So we may need to add extra service to these locations.
No, and that's why thank you, Maya, for bringing that back up. I mean, that is a good point to look at in terms of where service is versus those that use it. And it is not, we talk about a half-mile walk, depending on who you are, that can be a bit of a
20-minute
walk.
walk, yeah.
I mean, we talk about our quote-unquote downtown parking issue, and people get upset when they can't park right in front of the business that they want to go into right away. How close is the next bus stop to being able to be,
So this is something
to increase ridership?
This is something we ask the public because it's a trade-off. So if you want a stop that just goes next to you, it means you're going to have less service because the bus has to do more deviations to reach everybody within that amount. But on the other hand, you can have a long walk, but then you can have better service, a bus coming like more often and maybe more useful for more people. So this is something we have been asking public, and it's something we're going to ask them through these studies we're doing right now.
And I'll say our loop hits every major shopping center. We hit Fred Meyer's, we hit Safeway, we have
other
stops
center.
downtown. We go down Third because of the amount of traffic and pedestrians on Second, but we have a stop right there at Wake Park. We have a stop Grant, so that people can walk downtown. There's a stop that's going to be right there next to our beer garden when that comes open. So we hit we also hit almost every single major park in the city as well. That loop is really stretched well. And when Walnut Street opens, we're going to shift it just a little bit to be able to catch the edge of Walnut Street as well.
So as Jerry's leaving towards the back, right? So Jerry, did you hear that we've got transit set up for Walnut Street?
Yeah, he's going to build me a bus stop already.
Yeah, we talk about it.
That's opening next year, right?
Yeah.
Next year? Okay. Thank you both very much. Appreciate it. Thanks to your colleague online. I'm sure there's more to come, so thanks, you guys. That concludes our work session here this evening. We are past the time to start the city council meeting. Does everybody need a break?
I wouldn't mind running to.
Okay, so we will take a 7-minute break and start at 10 after. Thank you. Canby. We're going to get started here in our city council meeting now. We're going to get going here in 5, 4, 3, 2. Good evening, Canby. Welcome to the May 1st, 2024 regular city council meeting. If you please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this great community. I thank you so much for the leaders that are here on the dais, that are here in our auditorium and throughout our city. I thank you for the community that we are, a community collection of dreamers and doers. And I thank you for the collaboration that we have as a city. Tonight I ask just for comfort for those that are dealing with illnesses, heartache, having to tend to families that may be transitioning in this stage of life. I ask these things in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is new employee introductions. Eileen, do we have?
We do not.
We do not. Okay.
It says we do.
We will move on. Next on the agenda is a presentation from the Historic Preservation Group to recognize the month. Do we have?
Yes.
I'm missing something.
I think that you might have a little bit of a bio for our presenter.
I do. I'd like to introduce Anne Levant Prahl to tell us a little bit. She's from the Oregon Heritage. She's an Oregon Heritage Commissioner. And Anne Levant Prahl is a curator of collections for the Oregon Jewish Museum and Center for Holocaust Education, where she oversees the oral history program and collects first-person narratives. She holds a DA Master's in Folklore and Museum Studies from the University of Texas in Austin. So, welcome to come up and tell us a little bit about you and the Oregon Heritage.
Mr. Mayor. I am Anne Levant Prahl, and I was appointed to the Governor's Commission by the governor 6 years ago, and I have to tell you, this is one of the best parts of the job. I love to be able to single out people and organizations that are doing great work to preserve heritage in Oregon. And today I'm going to read to you because I have a little thing to say from the director of the commission. I'm pleased to be here on behalf of your Oregon Heritage Commission to extend our congratulations to Peggy Sigler and Dawn now Coleman. Congratulations, Dawn, and to both of you, in recognition of their contribution to local heritage preservation efforts. Peggy was among 12 individuals, projects, and organizations that received a 2024 Oregon Heritage Excellence Award. And I have to take a break here to tell you that's not an easy thing to do. There are a lot of applicants for this award, and you have to be spectacular to get it, and she is. These are competitive awards. They recognize the work that goes above and beyond expectations and serves as a model for future work and inspires others. Peggy, I don't know if you know this, but I will tell you if you don't. Peggy has dedicated over 3 decades to heritage advocacy. She has served as a volunteer, a staff member, and a consultant across numerous projects. Her dedication, strategic vision, extensive network, and solution-driven spirit have been invaluable assets to her ongoing efforts to preserve and promote heritage in Canby and across the county and beyond. And yeah, let me reiterate, it's a pretty impressive thing. Good job. And Dawn Coleman was one of 18 standout heritage volunteers from across Oregon that were recognized this year at the Oregon Heritage Conference. This category honors the crucial roles the role that volunteers have in heritage organizations' abilities to preserve and share Oregon's history. Dawn's time and energy have helped the Canby Historical Society move important work forward, such as updating the website, increasing a social media presence, and being a steward and advocate for the Society's collection. And I'm sure I don't need to remind all of you civic-minded people that it is volunteers who do all of the work that we need to have done in order to preserve Oregon's heritage. So thanks to both of you for your important and critical contributions to heritage preservation in Oregon. The work of individuals such as you is what brings us together as a state in valuing and preserving our shared history.
Thank you very much for that. And so we have some recognition for both of them, but before I do that, I want to officially recognize that here for the month of May is the proclamation for the Trust for Historic Preservation. So whereas the National Trust for Historic Preservation establishes May as Historic Preservation Month in 1973 as a way to promote historic places for the purpose of instilling national and community pride, promoting heritage tourism, and showing the social and economic benefits of historic preservation. Whereas the City of Canby recognizes May as Historic Preservation Month and supports activities in the community to instill awareness and promote the historic assets in Canby. Whereas Historic Preservation Month can promote Canby's 5 locally designated historic landmarks and 1 landmark listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Whereas nonprofit heritage organizations and their volunteers, including Friends of Cara School, Canby Historical Society, and Mark Prairie Historical Society, are the backbone of Canby's historic preservation effort. And whereas 2 of Canby's preservation volunteers were recognized at the recent Oregon Heritage Conference, Don Coleman as Canby Historical Society's Volunteer of the Year, and Peggy Siegler, who won the biannual Oregon Heritage Excellence Award for an individual. Now, therefore, I, Brian Hodson, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the City of Canby, do hereby proclaim May 2024 as Historic Preservation Month, and I further call upon members of the community to join in commemorating this event by participating in the Downtown Heritage Site Walking Tours during the May 2nd, First Thursday Night Market, and the Chamber of Commerce Luncheon on May 7th to hear the findings of the Downtown Historic Survey, as well as the library's May 18th workshop on researching the history of your property, given to my hand this first day of May 2024 in the city of Canby, Oregon. It's very exciting that we have our historic group here in Canby has done a tremendous job. And so I have something to read and present for Ms. Coleman. Where is Ms. Coleman? She's in the back. Oh, we should have had her come to the, here, please come up front. So it says, Dear Dawn, on behalf of the Oregon Heritage Commission, I would like to thank you for your volunteer service for the Canby Historical Society and ask that you please accept the enclosed certificate as one of the 2024 Standout Heritage Volunteers in Oregon. In Oregon, volunteers are crucial to heritage organizations' survival, efficacy, and effectiveness in preserving and promoting Oregon's heritage. The standout heritage volunteers recognized in this category are nominated by heritage organizations across the state for their contributions to local heritage preservation efforts. The work of these volunteers, such as yourself, is what brings us together as a state in valuing and preserving our shared history. Your work for the Canby Historical Society has truly made an impact. The words expressed in the application materials were incredibly inspiring, along with the body of work you have accomplished for the organization. Efforts that include updating the website, implementing new fundraising methods, bring the organization to life on social media, and being a steward and advocate for the Historical Society's collections. Please know that you have made and continue to make a very big difference. Earlier this month, we made a video of the 2024 Standout Heritage Volunteers, and everyone can view that if they'd like at OregonHeritage.org. And so the certificate says the 2024 Standout Heritage Volunteer. So this certificate is presented by Oregon Heritage to Don Coleman for your dedication to the Canby Historical Society. So I have both of these for you. There is that for you. And then, pretty fancy schmancy.
Yeah, that's fancy.
Excellent.
Fancy schmancy.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Jamie, do we know who we're giving the proclamation to?
I'm not sure who is supposed to be receiving the proclamation, but we have several members, including Mrs. Sigler
Yeah,
here
please.
this evening, several members of various heritage efforts here in Canby. So I think it'd be great if we invited them up
Yeah, let's
and as
do a
well,
photo op.
and take a photo,
Yeah.
maybe right in front, and that would be great. So if you're interested
Dawn, come on
and
up.
willing, that would be great. But, yeah. Anybody who's,
Come up,
volunteers.
come up, Judy.
I know that there are people from the
on up.
Mark Curry School and Harris School and Historical Society. We've got a lot covered. Wonderful. Okay, everybody, just say cheese a little bit longer. Wonderful.
Cheese a little bit
Thank you so much.
String cheese.
And Jamie, maybe we make sure this gets to Carol or, perfect. All right, next on the agenda, thank you. So then Tyler,
We've got
hi, there you are, thank you.
We've got more exciting news in relation to Canby's history. So, hello, Mayor and City Council. My name is Tyler Nizer, Economic Development and Tourism Coordinator for the City of Canby. And we've got, we just mentioned a lot about the involvement with Canby's history and the proclamation in relation to National Historic Preservation Month. And I would like to invite City Council, Mayor, residents, visitors to Canby tomorrow, Thursday, May 2nd at 5 o'clock. We are going to be presenting the time capsule into the Grant Street Arch, and that'll take place at 5 o'clock right at Grant and First. And everybody's welcome to join us. There's going to be lots of items that we've collected from the community. We've had an outpouring of, different items such as menus, stickers from businesses, and a lot of other items that I won't disclose because you got to come tomorrow and find out what's in there. But it's just, it's really interesting, kind of what is represented to see what Canby looks like today and now. And that'll be opened in 2074, so 50 years from now. And it'll be interesting to see kind of what things have changed and what things have stayed the same. So we've put together a great representation of kind of the day-to-day of Canby now. So come check it out. Directly after that, there will be a unveiling of a sculpture and historic tree planting of a white oak over at Historic City Hall. So in between Historic City Hall and the Dahlia Building. This is put on by the Canby Area Beautification and also Canby Civic Block LLC. So They will probably around 5:20, 5:30-ish. They'll be planting the tree, unveiling the sculpture, and it'll be a great time over there. That's around 2nd and Holly, just if people's trying to get a feel for where that's located downtown. And then that'll wrap up around 6 o'clock, and you're in Canby, and it's the first Thursday of the month, which means it's the first Thursday night market taking place. This occurs on a monthly basis. It's from 5 to 8 p.m., so you still got 2 hours left. Stay in Canby. So many businesses are open. They're welcoming people to shop, dine, play, stay in Canby. There's over 50 businesses and vendors participating in this month's first Thursday. So there'll be vendors on First Avenue, vendors on Second Avenue, and it's all tied to Historic Preservation Month. So there's a scavenger hunt that the City of Canby is putting on. Check the table over at Second Avenue in between Holly and Grant. And the participating businesses, actually, you'll go and find out what year each building was built. So tying that all in together, there's going to be goats, bouncy houses, you name it, it's going to be there. So come support Canby, and we look forward to seeing everybody there.
Are goats going to be in the bouncy house?
I
better
don't
watch that.
believe so, but that would be interesting, yes.
But, yes, Counselor Patton.
I think to go along with that, isn't ODOT also going to be here from 5 to 7 doing a
yes.
thing?
There's lots of
So-
activity, like even the City of Canby Library is going to be open. They're going to do an open house. You're going to see behind the scenes from them, and I hadn't heard about ODOT, but yes. So,
So there you go, folks. If you want to talk about 99E to somebody,
Come down on.
show on up. After you help plant the tree, come on by.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
There's no issues with 99.
There won't be soon.
Perfect road. All right. We'll move into citizen input and community announcements. So this is an opportunity for those of you here that want to address the council on non-agenda items. If you are attending in person, please, on the back podium are these wonderful yellow cards that you can fill out like these fine people have. Bring them over here to our city recorders, and they'll make sure I get it, and you'll be given your opportunity to speak tonight. I know that we do have someone online as well tonight, so we'll make sure we get to them. You have an allotted time to speak to or address the council of 3 minutes, and if it's something that we can address here at this time, we will try to do the best we can to do that and or get back to you at a later date. If you are interested in speaking to the council via Zoom, please reach out to the city recorder on the day of the city council meetings by 4:30. So we'll go to Kevin, that's attending virtually.
Hello, can you hear me now?
We can, sir. Good evening.
Thank you very much. I apologize, this is the first time I've addressed the council, so please excuse me. I am the president of the Dinsmore Estates HOA, and we are currently dealing with some construction across the street just south of our HOA for the Marketplace construction. I have been receiving a lot of complaints from our homeowners and HOA members regarding noise levels and the amount of time that the construction is allowed to take place over there. I think it's no surprise that Canby is a blue-collar town, and a lot of us make a living off the sweat of our backs and the sweat of our brow, and we all understand that. However, the work hours, I think, were initially set in place during the time when Canby was a farming community. I believe the allotted work hours, according to the current ordinance, are from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. However, there is a caveat that goes along with that says that vehicles and other machines need to have some kind of damper on them. And unfortunately, when you're swinging hammers and, cutting plywood and things of this nature, table saws, hammers, and impact wrenches and things of that nature don't really have dampening availability. Furthermore, there are some older folks in this area, along with some younger children that have bedtimes, around 8 o'clock or what have you. So I think we would like to address the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and see if there's anything that the city or the council can do to try to minimize the allotted work time of construction across the street. Hopefully, maybe like a 6 or a 7 o'clock cutoff time would be probably desired by most of the HOA members. And that's what I have for you right now, my 3 minutes. So.
Kevin, thank you very much for, zooming in and bringing that to our attention. What I will do is I will work with and have this conversation with our city administrator, and then we'll, go through and see if this is something that the council wants to take a look at and have conversation on. So that's where we'll go from here. So thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Thank you all. I appreciate your time.
Next, I have Gracie Carter on the Youth Activity Center. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Gracie Carter and I reside in Canby, Oregon. I would like to start off by thanking our mayor and our city council and everyone for being here tonight and taking time out of your night to listen to your fellow community members. My name is Gracie Carter. I'm a junior at Canby High School. I have held many leadership roles throughout my high school career while also working closely with Canby High School's administration and school board. I am currently one of 3 junior class officers and have been elected for our ASB's Service and Kindness Officer for this upcoming school year. I am the Metro East State Representative for the Oregon Association of Student Council, as well as the Vice President of Development on the State Board for Oregon Future Business Leaders of America. I have come here today to reach out for help with the problem I see becoming more and more prominent in our community. Students are loitering at Canby High School after business hours and trying to enter the school outside of business hours. As well. I am not sure of the intentions behind these actions, but I can presume these reasons could range anywhere from not having a surplus of accessible, affordable activities here and around Canby to, sadly, kids having a poor home life and not wanting to return home until absolutely necessary. After brainstorming with classmates, staff members, and State Representative Ben Bowman from District 25, I've reached a consensus that we are in desperate need of a youth activity center. Some of you may be familiar with this idea, but for those who may not be, this would be a place where students could be welcomed into a safe space to spend time with friends and an opportunity to get kids off the streets and deter vandalism and loitering in our school and community. This would require provided pay to at least one individual who would take charge of this program. I also would like to collaborate with Canby Police Department, Canby Fire Department, as well as the school board and school district. I see so much potential in this solution, and I am very passionate about this solution. I am very passionate about this project, and I am ready to brainstorm, problem solve, and implement everything and anything that has to do with this youth activity center. As you may already be able to tell, I have numerous ideas surrounding this project, including location, actual activities that would take place at this youth activity center, timelines, sponsors, obstacles we need to face, and solutions on how to overcome those. I would like to meet with the individuals from City Council, School Board, and Police Department, as well as the Fire Department, who are best positioned to help determine those next steps. Thank you for taking your time to listen. I hope to be in contact soon.
Ms. Carter, thank you very much for coming this evening and speaking to us. I will tell you that it has been an idea of great conversation over the years amongst many of us on the council and many of us before we were even on the council. We do know that there is a dearth of available activities and things like that. If you're not in sports, what else is there to do? You know, and I mean, yes, we have a dance studio and there's those things as well, but those can be cost prohibitive for many members of our community, especially certain teens. I will say that we do have a very active teen center in our library, and we're always trying to get teens engaged in that space as well, and try to enhance that, be involved in that as well. I would more than absolutely enjoy, I know a number of us up here would as well, to have this conversation, because yeah, it is long overdue. It is something that we need to look at, that all of our teams can take advantage of and be involved in. So thank you for coming and addressing us on this matter. So
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could, thank you for your presentation, and I have a lot of interest in this area. I would also invite you to the Park and Rec Committee meeting, because we have some planning that we're currently doing through the Park and Rec Committee, but I'm sure that the committee would love to hear your presentation there as well.
And I would love to be there.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Greg Perez, Saturday events. Good evening, Mr. Perez.
Good evening, City Council, City Administrator, councilors. I'll make this short. I know you're timing me. I want to talk about Saturday's market. Last weekend, we had an incident, and I know you're all aware, not taking sides, but I'd like for the city to put something in place to where we don't have any type of dangerous tools, whether it be an air gun nailer or air compressed nailer or any tools like that that could hurt somebody. And it's evident that this took place. It's sad that it took place. It should never have taken place. So I would like the city or the council to look over this and get with the vendor person in charge to put some type of restriction or of some sort of these type of items that are at the Saturday market. We don't want to be in the newspaper for anything happening like that. Businesses don't want anything happening like that. And that's all I have to say about this. I think it's something we should look into, and then so something like this will never happen again.
Yeah,
and I mean this in a very good way.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I agree with you. And Ms. Stein and I have had a couple of conversations already between that incident and our meeting here, and I know that there's conversation about that entire situation and what we need to maybe look at to avoid these kinds of things in the future. So that those conversations are already occurring. So
already. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, that is the last citizen card that I have this evening, and we have nobody else online. Okay. I'll move into the approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda that includes the minutes of the April 17th, 2024 City Council work session and regular meeting, and the appointments to the Budget Committee, appointment of member Bert DeGraw to the Budget Committee with a term ending June 30, 2024, appointment of member Kim White-Wiggin to the Budget Committee for a term to end June 30, 2025, appointment of member Darrell Paulson to the Budget Committee with a term ending June 30, 2025.
Thank you.
Second.
A motion has been made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Council Patton to approve the consent agenda that includes the minutes of the April 17th, 2024 City Council work session and regular meeting, and appointments to the Budget Committee. So appointment of member Bert DeGraw to the Budget Committee with a term ending June 30th, 2024. Appointment of member Kim Wiggin to the Budget Committee with a term ending June 30th of 2025. An appointment of Darrell Paulson to the Budget Committee with a term ending June 30th of 2025. Any questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes 6-0. Next on the agenda is ordinances and resolutions. The first one this evening is number 1620, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to amend the contract with First Transit, Inc. of Chicago, Illinois, to provide services for an additional 3 years to a second reading on May 15th of 2024. And we have our transit duo to fill us in.
Heidi and Todd.
Everybody, Todd Wood, Transit Director.
Heidi Muller, Transit Coordinator.
So when we went out for RFP, to back up a little bit, all our drivers, all our dispatchers, they're all contract services in transit. You're looking at the only 2 full-time employees in transit, and we have 1 part-time administrator who helps us, keeps us in line, and that's Melody Thompson. She works about 24 hours a week. Outside of that, everybody else in transit is a contractor, and about every 6 years, we go out for RFP and we get a new contract. And that contract, the way it's written, is usually a 3-year contract with extensions beyond the 3 years, depending on how the contract is going. Last time we went out, we got First Transit. As mentioned here, they're technically been bought out by a company called Transdev, but they still go under the name First Transit. And we've hit the end this June of the first 3 years of the contract. And so we sit down with them and we negotiate the rate for, we can do 1, 2, or 3 years. I asked them for each of the next 3 years. And so that's what's sitting in front of you is this extension. It is expensive. It is very expensive. We're looking at just in the first year, so from June 30th of this year to July 1st of this year, an 18% increase in my operating costs from this contract. And then an additional 4.5, and then an additional 3.5 for the remaining years. We did a lot of math. Heidi and I have spent a lot of time over the last month doing a whole lot of math, talking to our partners. South Clackamas is contracted. Sandy is contracted. Clackamas County is contracted to talk to them. And other than South Clackamas, which has a very special arrangement with the logging company there that they've had for a long time, everybody else is seeing the same massive increases in contracting costs. So we had one of 3 choices. One is we could either sign these and continue with service, and they are providing us good service. We could go back out for RFP. The chances are very strong that these are better numbers than we get if we go back out for RFP, or we could do the math to see what it costs to bring this in-house. The in-house math doesn't work. It's about $200,000 more expensive. The plus to in-house, and that's not what we're here to talk about, but the plus to in-house is we have more control over the actual overhead costs. Contractors have fixed overhead costs. So if I reduce my operating hours, like for instance, let's say I do 5 hours less of dial rate a day, I don't get a lower rate, I get a higher rate. Instead of $92 an hour, I pay $95 an hour because those fixed costs are spread out over the entire 20,000 hours I have. So when you reduce those hours, that fixed cost goes up. When you have everything in-house, you can trim staff, trim services, and your overall costs go down, including your overhead costs. So you have much more control over that financial aspect. It's still more expensive to bring it in-house. So we're looking at the external costs. So then we talk about RFP. That's what Sandy is currently working on. They're currently at $90 an hour in their current contract, and they're going to go out for RFP. I have yet, and I've only been doing contracted services for about 6-7 years, I've yet to go out for RFP where I don't come back with a much higher number or a significantly higher number. So my suspicion is I could go back for RFP with another company. There's about 3 of them in total left, especially after COVID, and we'd end up in the $100 an hour range. To give you an example, Columbia County, which was my previous employer, went out for RFP and they came back at $107 an hour. So these costs are exploding. Why are they exploding? Same reason everybody else's costs are exploding. Personnel costs have gone up. The drivers just negotiated their contract with the Amalgamated Trans Union. Top scale went from about $26 an hour to $30 an hour. So that's a pretty significant increase in their costs. All the overhead costs at their company have gone up. All their personnel costs have gone up. That just translates to our cost. About a year ago, our city insurance said they'd no longer cover the contractor, CIS, and when they did that, we had to start buying our liability insurance from the contractor to cover the contract employees. That cost has gone through the roof, and if you own a home and a car, you've probably seen the same thing. So this, in my estimation, represents right now the best we can do financially for a contractor, even though it's extremely high. We can easily cover the first year. We can easily cover the second year. I would say easily it gets really tight in the second year. The third year is where things get a little sticky, but we've been seeing about $150,000 to $200,000 a year increase in our payroll tax. And if that continues over the next 3 years, then we should be able to cover year 3 just fine. Grants are not keeping up. They don't grow at that rate. If you're lucky, if you get a 5% increase in your 5311, 5310, I don't even know that I'm going to get 5310 next biennium because that's being absorbed by other avenues. And as we've talked about, the STIF, most of the STIF goes through TriMet. We see a portion of that STIF money that has been increasing, but the increase in STIF funds over the this biennium to the next biennium is very, very tiny. So we'd love to get more STIF money, but that's a legislative fix. And so, yeah, so that's where we're at.
Okay. Can you, just for some of us up here?
Sure.
What is the 5011
Sure.
funding and then also STIF?
All right, so we see generally 2 pots of operating. We used to see 3 pots of operating money from the state and federal government. We used to see 5311, which is federal transportation. It's just for rural agencies, those less than 50,000. And that's from the Federal Highway Department. We get a portion of that money. That money's based on your population, generally. The state divvies it out based on population and historical data. That represents about $330,000 a year in operating. We use that for our 99X. The 5310 used to be specifically for elderly and disabled transportation. It only represents about $90,000 a year. It's been more and more being pushed towards maintenance versus elderly and disabled, but it's a very small amount of money we use for our dial-a-ride service. We used to get state for transportation fund, which was from your gas tax, the portion they call the lawnmower tax. I don't know how they figure out what's going into a lawnmower and what's going into a car, but they call it the lawnmower tax. IDs for people who don't have driver's licenses, they get just state IDs, and cigarette taxes. Those used to go into the SDF fund. A couple of years ago, the state decided that, well, we should just put that money into the STIF, and so that money went away. So we get that as a portion of STIF. The STIF is an interesting pot of money. Back in 2017, there was I don't know what you call that, a House bill that went in front of the legislator to create transit tax for transit improvements, not just public transit, but also there's some for that. This I-205 project is part of that. I think tolling was actually a part of that, and a few other things. And they created a payroll tax that comes out of every person's paycheck. So if you get a paycheck, you look, you see transit on there. That is HB 2017 money. That money is collected based on where you work, not where you live, where you work, and that money is then sent to the state, and the state distributes that to the qualified entity in your area. Our qualified entity is TriMet. So TriMet, that money is then distributed to TriMet. TriMet then has to make an agreement with the surrounding communities that has transit service and determine a fair way to distribute some of that money back to us. And then they are in charge of making sure that we use the money correctly. It's a very strange program because the way it works is the money is collected like a year, like through a quarter of a year prior to when it's actually distributed. And our projects that we have to put in, we guess, because we don't know exactly how much money is coming, because it's based on actual collections. So this year, we will submit our projects based on the money they think they may collect in 25, 26, or 26, 27, actually. We submit that to a group in Clackamas County that reviews it, and they go, this is great, and then they pass it on to TriMet. And TriMet then sends it to their board of directors, and their board of directors then votes on the entire stiff package and decides whether or not it works, and then it goes to the state. The state approves it after that.
I'm going to interject real quickly because I'm watching my counselors just shaking their head in disbelief.
It's ridiculous.
And so for the past 12 years, I have sat on the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, and this is about 80% of what we talk about every month. And then I think, are you and I also on the Region 1 Area Commission on Transportation?
I'm not on the ACT,
Okay,
no.
I get to be on that one.
Yeah.
So that for the last 4 years has been this in tolling. So if you have any interest in wanting to come to any of those committee meetings and talk more about transportation improvement funds, tolling, please let me know, and I will gladly bring you along.
So right
Thanks, Todd.
now.
I appreciate the breakdowns on that
Yeah,
stuff.
so right now, we receive about $330,000 a year in state transportation improvement funds. It's a very restrictive fund. You can only use it for the projects you specifically spelled out the 2 years prior when you applied for this. If more money comes in, that's great. You can't spend it or use it. It has to wait till the next biennium for you to put in the application to use it. So we often have money, extra money that comes in that gets put into carryover, and we carry it over. That also means, should the economy go in the opposite direction and we've put in for these projects, that money doesn't come in, you just don't get it, whether or not you've spent it. So it's a strange pot of money. We've been asking the state for a while to please take us out from under TriMet. It should go to the Canby City Council to approve our projects. They should be the ones, but we've got zero traction on that. So then we've said, well, okay, how about Clackamas County? Why doesn't Clackamas County be the qualified entity? Because they are interested in all of Clackamas County. Because I think TriMet receives about 90% of the STIF funds that come into the Portland metro area, and they distribute 9 point something around for various projects. We get a portion that is Clackamas County non-TriMet. So that's, I can't remember what the total is. The State Transportation Improvement Fund, of all the money it brings in, 74% of it goes to 4 transit agencies. The rest of it goes to and there's 36 transit agencies in the state. So it's an interesting pot of money. But so that money we're only seeing about 335 is their projection, and it doesn't really matter because if more money comes in their projection, I can use it anyway.
So we're hamstrung in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and it's all
And our
this
current-
is legislative.
And our current cat tax that is on the businesses, for now, you believe will cover
Yeah, it's
us in year
6.
three.
Yeah, we haven't changed that in the 22 years that we've been on our own, and I'm not proposing we change it now. I think there's efficiencies to be had in the system if push comes to shove, that I can make to keep us from having to even talk about that.
Okay.
But that tax is in your purview. You have 100% control over that tax.
Got it. Yes, Counselor.
Thank you. And thanks, Todd. Would this come out of the 24-25 or budget or this year's budget?
No, the 25, the one that's coming up. So this would be effective July 1st.
July 1st,
Yeah.
thank you.
And so it is in, if you, when you get the budget packet, this is already built into my transit budget. So you can see the first year's numbers will be there.
Okay, and so your staff report is recommending that we,
Yeah, I don't see a better way. My concern is, I had thought about just going for 1 year or 2 years. The problem is, things don't go down. So if I can lock my contractor in for 3 years, I have a better chance of me getting these numbers than trying to come back to you in 2 years and finding out that $99 an hour number is now $103 an hour, is my suspicion where we're going to be, so.
Well, I would agree with you, Todd, that it's probably better to contract this and do it in-house.
Councilor Patton, you had a question?
So as far as like.
Is your microphone on?
Oh, I'm sorry, did I cut?
Your mic.
Is your
Oh,
mic
the
on?
mic, yes. So you had talked about with the increase of businesses coming in, you know, the tax, what? It's on. Okay. The tax will sort of, we'll get more taxes. OLCC.
Yeah.
When they build their facility.
Yeah.
Would they be paying?
Yes.
They would be paying into the system.
They are not exempt from payroll tax.
From the payroll,
Correct.
okay.
They're exempt from other taxes, like property taxes and whatever else, but they're not exempt.
They're not exempt from this one, okay.
I'm not exempt from the payroll. I pay into the cat tax, the city does, so we're not exempt either. So.
Yeah, I think I pay into something, but mine might be going to Grants Pass, because that's where my main office is.
Then probably.
So I'm worthless to the system, I apologize.
Well, you can't write a bus then.
So.
I've actually, this is horrible, I should do it, I've never actually ridden the bus, I'm horrible. I wave at the person when I'm working on the sign, but I've never actually been on the bus.
The loop is free, so just jump on and jump off. It's bad, it's because, that loop is done phenomenally. We're doing about
over
100 rides a day on that. We've now gotten to where we're about half of what the 99X is doing every day, which is phenomenal. The number of people that have chosen to ride that. It's easy. You can get on and get off. There's about 30. I saw the thing where it says people said more loop stops. We have something like 35 loop stops. It's like, what, are we going to put one every block or? Yeah. So I don't know. Starting to put signs all over the place. Anyway, that is my recommendation, is that we sign this. I think it's probably the best value for us at this time. And we're just going to have to talk again in 3 years about what we do if the economy continues to head in the direction it's headed.
And I'm sorry, Todd.
Yeah.
You had said that we're looking at each of the next couple of years to being 3 to 4%.
This first one is 18%.
Okay.
And that is, and a part of that is because when we signed our first contract, it was just in the middle of COVID, right? So everybody's wages were pretty flat.
Yeah.
And in the last 3 years, everybody's wages have gone through the roof. And so when the ATU went to negotiate their additional salaries, they, asked for more money, which who isn't?
So it's 18 and then 3 to 4 and then 3
Then
to 4.
18, and then I believe 4.5 and 3.5. So
Which is pretty, that's.
usually you see a 3.5 to 5 somewhere in there. That's pretty standard. The 18
They're
was a bit
playing
of a
catch up right now.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Take it.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, are you ready for a
I
motion?
would love one.
I move to approve ordinance number 1620, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to amend the contract with First Transit, Inc. of Chicago, Illinois, to provide services for an additional 3 years to second reading on May 15th, 2024.
Motion has been made by Counselor Davis and seconded by Counselor Maldonado to approve ordinance number 1620, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to amend the contract with First Transit, Inc. of Chicago, Illinois, to provide services for an additional 3 years to come to the council for a second reading on May 15th, 2024. Any other discussion or comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes
Thanks, Todd.
6-0. Thank you both, appreciate it. Next on the agenda is resolution number 1403, a resolution establishing new rules and regulations for the Zion Memorial Park Cemetery and repealing resolution 931. And I think that we have our Public Works Director, Mr. Nelzine, and team. And you'll introduce your team?
I will.
Perfect.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jerry Nalzine, Canby Public Works Director, and I have brought with me Rhonda Roselle, the Public Works Office Specialist, and Michael Nakano on my left. He is our Zion Memorial Cemetery Sexton. So we've came here, all of us, because we really want to get this passed. So just a little quick history of the cemetery. When I started, I don't know a lot before that, but I started in the early 2000s, and basically we had a contractor running that. Kenny Robinson did a great job, and our portion of that is we would stop by there and dump brush, and he would burn it for us because it was out of the city limits. And so the Canby Fire, we could kind of get around that. It was kind of a nice deal. And we got ice cream while we were there. So back at the end of 2014, Rick Robinson came to me and he asked us, what do you know about the cemetery and all this? And I said, I don't know, but I'm glad to go out there if you want me to. And he says, good, because we're taking over it. So what do you know about running a cemetery? So January 1st of 2015, the Public Works team inherited the cemetery and took it in-house. And so Michael and Rhonda kind of teamed up on this and have been kind of handling it ever since. And so why we're here today is that we are finally at a stage where they got it efficient, and we're going to try to update the rules. So they came to me recently and said this would make our job easier if we could do these. And I asked them when's the last time we did it, and I believe it was 2006. 2006. So we're here tonight, and Maya was nice enough to attach the little changes we made to do it, and I've brought these two here if we have any questions. And if you wanted Rhonda to go over her changes or have any questions, we're all here for you. So
No, I appreciate in the packet what was highlighted. The stuff that was highlighted, was that changed or added?
That was changed and, that was changed.
Okay.
Or removed, that's fine.
Yeah, or removed.
You'll look, some of the stuff's pretty simple because the council was nice enough to approve more holidays for us. And then they've added time. I can let Rhonda go into that.
I'll just briefly go over this. So we used to have 24-hour notice if somebody passes, and then we would be able to help them. We now need to change it to 48 hours. And so that's one of them. And then, just like Jerry said, we've now have more holidays on there. We only had 4, so now we're at a smidge more. And then the next one is like, we have people that like to plant things that shouldn't be planted around their headstones. So it can't be any, if they want to put flowers out there, that's great. We try to tell them not to put glass out there because it does break from the hot and the cold and stuff like that. So we have the little nippers that are out there and they're running without their shoes on, so we don't want to have any accidents. So we kind of clarified that. So most of this is just for clarification. The next one is like up to Michael, so he's the sexton. And so like when he's burying somebody, especially for the mausoleum, it's up to him on how this gets coordinated. So that needed to be a little bit better defined. The recording fee that was in here was from way back, so it had went up. And the other last thing was our headstones. So our plots are so large, but we have 3 different headstones. So one is for like double plots. And so people were thinking, I want the bigger stone, but it's on a smaller plot. We had to better define that too, so people weren't wanting the large ones, taking it over on somebody else's. And I think that was the other one was, a long time ago, the cemetery used to do the concrete for the headstones. So we still have to accommodate, but we still have to figure out who back in the day did that. So if there's something wrong with their concrete, we will go out and work on it. But so we better defined that one too, just so that people understood that it's up to him on what we will be doing. So those are the changes that we did.
Okay. Is a $75 recording fee recouped?
It's now 100, yeah.
It's now 100, okay.
Right.
Yep.
And is that recouping costs?
Yeah, and Mayor Hodson, these are stuff just to recoup what we're doing right now. We were going to feel this out, how this goes, and then after next budget cycle, revisit all costs of the cemetery.
Right.
And maybe have a work session, come back to you and give you an update what we think. We just wanted to get these rules started first and then go to that direction. And our city administrator also brought this up with us earlier. And so that's on our list of things to do.
Okay. Do you have Council President Hensley, had a question?
Just one, that this is laid out very well. I like the highlights. You could see very easily what was changed, so I appreciated that. It made it a lot simpler to identify what the changes were. My only question is, under the flowers and grounds regulation, floral and grounds regulations, item number 6 was just completely removed. So my only question is, if the memorial garden that exists, are there things in it that's planted, and what will happen to those if we're no longer allowing that?
Well, the current items in there, we maintain them. And I think in the 8 years I've been there, there's only been like one planting. And so I don't think it'll really stop it. It would just, instead of like letting others plant, they could give me the plants or whoever's working out there. And then we can plant them where we see fit.
Okay.
Which could be in the memorial garden, but yeah, we've only had one planting go in there, and that was like the first year, so.
Okay, so basically this is just so
It's
that
not
people aren't
used more.
out there planting it themselves.
Yeah.
So they want something planted in
They can-
honor of their loved one, they can get in touch with you and have that done.
Yeah,
Okay.
they can still donate it to the cemetery, and then it can be planted.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councilor Patton.
So something stuck out to me when reading through all this. On page 71, burial regulations, number 5, it says, all opening and closing of any nature will be done by the cemetery sexton only. Were people digging their own holes? Were like people coming in with backhoes and taking care of it themselves to save money? This seems very weird.
There has been requests to do that.
Fantastic. We're clamping down on that.
No, it's hard to.
We're clamping down on that. There's no like free digging out there.
We have to, just because of the depth. And
I agree.
Yeah.
So when you buy that discount plot,
Yeah.
you can't dig.
I'm
your
coming
own-
for a discount plot, just so you
Correct.
know. But no, okay, good to know. Well, because I'd have to start digging early. So obviously, by the time I get ready to die, I need to have that hole ready to go. So, but no, I think that was just the one that stuck out to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other appropriate questions and comments?
I dig a lot of holes, but I'm not digging my hole.
Why do cemetery
All right.
talks just get out of hand sometimes?
Every time cemetery comes up, it becomes a very lively
It's unruly.
conversation.
Yeah, Mayor Hodson, I'm just glad to have our cemetery team come out here because they don't get to, you
No,
guys
appreciate
see
it.
once in a
Don't get to
while.
come sit in the
Michael
hot
never
seat.
gets seen unless you're there for a
Yeah.
purpose. And so, yeah.
Well, thank you for bringing them. Thank you guys for being here and the work that you do, and these updates are appreciated very much. Thank you. Yes, Councilor Patton,
If I may.
you may.
Oh, hold on just a second, 65. I move to approve resolution number 1403, a resolution establishing new rules and regulations for the Zion Memorial Park Cemetery and repealing resolution 931.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Patton and seconded by Councilor Sassy to approve Resolution 1403, a resolution establishing new rules and regulations for the Zion Memorial Park Cemetery and repealing Resolution 931. Any further discussion or question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes 6-0.
Thank you.
all, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is considering resolution number 1404, a resolution adopting a supplemental budget for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. And I believe that is falling to Miss Jamie Stickle.
Good evening.
Stickle.
Jamie Stickle, the Director of Economic Development and Communications Specialist for the city. And I, to follow two dynamic teams like that, I feel like I should have more, but I will have to do for tonight. Tonight before you is Resolution 1404, which is adopting a supplemental budget for the 2023-24 fiscal year. This is to acknowledge that the city received the $200,000 Oregon Main Street Revitalization Grant and expended it within the same fiscal year because that amount was over the 10% of kind of the wiggle room that the state allows for. We had to go through a supplemental budget to be able to acknowledge that officially. And just as a reminder, that Oregon Main Street Revitalization Grant is something that is for the building. So when the city sold the former Canby Public Library building, then we worked with the state to be able to ensure that that grant would still be able to apply to the facade work there. And I also worked with Bryce Morrow from Oregon City Brewing Company and Canby Library Holdings to be able to make sure that the work that he was doing was in the same intent as the grant that we had applied for. And the state agreed, and Bryce was a great partner through that. The grant concluded June 30th of 2023, and then shortly after the state issued a check to the city. We brought that before you with Ordinance 1609 in order to authorize the expenditure. And then while working on the budget this year, Scott Schlag, our new finance director, pointed out that we needed to do a supplemental budget, so here we are. And it's a relatively straightforward one where the grant came in and then we expended it within the same fiscal year. And staff recommends that you adopt Resolution 1404. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Yes.
Quick question, and this might be more for Scott or for the city administrator, but when we're doing supplemental budgets, I know that there's an ORS or there's guidelines in regards to how many times you can do supplemental budgets before those have to then go to open up the budget committee, the prior budget committee, for review of those supplemental budgets. And I'm just wondering, how many more supplemental budgets are we going to approve as a city council before we have to call together the budget committee? It's just a question I had.
I'm going to bring Scott up to answer that question.
So I don't believe there's actually a number. If you have to do 3 supplemental budgets, it all boils down to percentages of basically your overall originally budgeted fund. If it meets a certain threshold, then you can perform a supplemental budget and pass that. But there's no actual set number of how many you can do throughout the year.
But there is a percentage of the budget as it relates to supplemental budgets.
Percentage of the budget, yeah. That would have to go in front of the committee.
Okay, do we see any more supplemental budget requests coming through?
I'm keeping my eye on it, so I don't really see anything over the next couple of months before we hit fiscal year end. So this may be the only one.
Okay.
But we could see another one. I can't, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't see into the future.
Okay.
But obviously I want to make sure that the city stays within compliance with our Oregon statutes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for staff? Yes, Councilor Davis.
Are you ready for a motion?
I guess everybody seems to be A-okay with what Ms. Stickles presented this evening.
Okay, I move to adopt Resolution 1404, a resolution adopting a supplemental budget for the 23-24 fiscal year.
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilor Davis and seconded by Councilor Maldonado to adopt Resolution 1404, a resolution adopting a supplemental budget for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes 6-0. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the Canby Beer Library is well underway. So if you haven't had the opportunity to drive by, please do so. It changes on a daily basis, which has been, remarkable. And I know that we just had an update at the April 17th meeting. So if you or anybody is interested, it's really progressing well. And I ran into Bryce Morrow just today. He was working in the library and I was walking down the alley, and it feels feels really good to have a partner that I've worked with for a long time now be very present in the community and to get to see the hard work coming to fruition. So I just wanted to say that.
No,
thank you
thank you,
very
Jamie.
much.
Appreciate it.
It's been changing a lot. Yeah, now we're getting busy now.
Okay.
Safe travels.
Next on the agenda is discuss old business. The first piece, city attorney recruitment. I don't believe we have anything. No, I take that back. Yes, we do.
Yes, we do, Council.
corrected.
Yeah, so a while back, I think it was Councilor Patton asked for a breakdown of cost per month. And so that is what's in your packet today. The total bill to date has been $90,284. And then just adding a couple months averaged over the year equals a projected amount for fiscal year 23-24 of $108,340, say 110. So I wanted to get back with you. April, which is actually March's billing, was high due to a number of personnel issues that we had in the city. And it was also asked whether or not we had a budget amount for Joe to use to tap into for outside counsel. I actually didn't find anything in the last couple of years that, in budget or actuals, that he tapped into. So most of the actual costs in the professional and technical line item are for minutes and records management costs and some legal costs related to personnel issues that came up last year before this fiscal year. So just wanted to show you that, that amount and take any questions that you have.
Councilor Patton.
So first, thank you. This is exactly what I was hoping to see, because one of the things that I think we need to track in this is trends. And I'm not seeing any frightening trends at this point in time. But I think time will tell as we get more data points into this. My question would be, would it be possible, or would others find it interesting to have a second bar next to each one of these that shows like what the budgeted, but technically the budgeted amount for that month would be? Like we've budgeted X amount for the year. We divide that by 12, so that way we can see like kind of how much is really being saved or not by month with it as we track along. And then if we bump up over in a particular month, do we bump down the next and kind of, so we have the visual of actuals to budget right in here.
So you're asking for the current year, or are you asking, so looking ahead?
Well, I'd say looking back, like adding in to this here and then continue this data along so that as we move forward, whether that bar is going up and down into the future. So, you know, we know what the numbers would be for this year because we had a certain amount set aside for Joe's salary. And then next year, obviously, there's no fire to hire a city attorney. So I'm assuming that we're either going to keep that city attorney line item or turn it into contract city attorney services. Then we're going to know what next year's budget is for the year and then divide that by 12 and then start plugging that side by side. So if all of a sudden we see 1 month where we're above that bar and then the next couple months we're down below it, that's great. But all of a sudden if we see 3 months where we're above that bar, now maybe we have a trend occurring that could be worrisome that we really need to kind of pay attention to. Yeah, is kind of what I was envisioning with that.
I think going back, and I mean, we've got it pretty much peanut buttered throughout the year, so it's going to be the same number across the year. And I mean, I think when we look at this anomaly-wise, you know, the April expense, like I think Maya put in her email to us, was all the personnel issues, but I think we had some increase in that in February as well, did we not?
It was a little bumped up in February.
So,
Not as much as in the.
I mean, I could see going forward into the next budget year having those.
Yeah, and that's fine.
you know,
I just think it
but
would be
it's-
good to add that bar in there, so we are tracking the actuals to budget within this in a monthly basis, so we can track those trends.
I'm fine either way. It doesn't sound like it'd be great difficulty for them just to add that bar. It's gonna be the same number every month.
Sure.
We have the average fee, then we have the standard deviation on there as well. We can.
Okay, stop. Now he's talking up here.
Plus or minus X amount, yeah. I'm not opposed to it. I mean, just have that as a comparison. I don't know, Eileen, you have a thought on it?
No, we could very easily add that information, just based on, just to, fill out the year and coming up with the 108 or the 110 that I think we're going to finish the year on. I did average these costs for the last 2 fiscal years, and it was about $9,000 a month. So, if we have anything to fill in right now, it would be about 9,000.
Okay. My goal is, as you all know, I am one that's a proponent for bringing this in. But at this point in time, I'm not setting my hair on fire because I agree, we're actually saving money here. And so I'm not going to make a fuss about it. But I think if we go into the middle of next year, and if I start to see where 3 months in a row where our bar is up above what our budget is, then I'm going to start, if I get reelected to council, that is, I'm going to start coming in and I'm going to have a bit of a fit. If not, I might be down there having the fit. So we'll have to see what happens.
Either way, Jason.
Either way, I'll be here.
Oh, my.
That was it for me.
Okay.
I have nothing more on this issue.
Okay, thank you, Eileen. Next up under old business, is discussion on technical services program direction. And I believe Mr. Wood is back up in front of us tonight.
Yeah, and as he comes up, council, I just want to remind you that, this issue really came up at my first budget committee meeting about a year ago, where there was discussion in the technical services program budget, and I wanted to make sure that we were doing an apples to apples comparison. And so I instructed Danny at the time, the former IT director, to get proposals. They weren't very responsive. And so as Todd agreed to take over management of the IT function, he issued proposals, and so what he's going to present tonight is based on actual proposals received from managed service provider compared with the cost of in-house IT staff.
Okay.
So I'll let Todd take it from here, but this what you're going to hear responds to what I promised the council originally.
Okay, sounds good. Did you have a question, Ray?
I do.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I have a question for the city administrator. I had an earlier conversation with the city administrator today asking what is the purpose of doing this now prior to going into the budget season, because we're very close to budget hearing. She told me that she needed to know amount to be able to put into the budget, and that's why we're dealing with this today. I have a lot of passion in this, and because it's a very serious subject, and I don't know if we have enough time tonight to actually deal with all the issues around this. And I would ask the council to think about moving this to a work session, and so that we have ample time to have good discussion with the council in regards to this subject, and allow us more time to dig into this as well. And it's just for council consideration, because I really feel that we need more time in dealing with this. And if the city administrator needs a budget amount, I think that based on the numbers that Todd has already given her, one way or the other, we could put in there a budget amount so that she could move forward with the budget. And then we could schedule a budget or a council meeting to a work session to discuss this. Because I think there's a lot of issues here. I think Todd has done his very best in putting together the issues, but I really think we need more time to study this and move this to a work session.
The only thing I would say to that is your budget committee, your first budget committee meeting starts on May 15th, and then the 23rd, and then the 30th is held out as an additional budget committee meeting should you need it. So if you're going to have a work session on this topic, it needs to happen fairly quickly.
Well, as I stated, I think we have a good idea as far as how much money we could put into budget as a placeholder.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, the two numbers aren't far off from each other, so pick one in the middle, I guess. I would concur with Councilor Davis. I would,
If I may.
discussion.
If you would let me just go through this, and then at the end, make that decision. I don't know if I can answer some of those questions. I understand you have a lot of questions. Let me go through what I know. I won't take a long time. And then you can have the discussion about whether or not you want to move this to a work session for a longer discussion. But at least present you with what I have, what I've done, so that you at least have that information to start with, and then decide whether or not you need more time to talk about it, if that's fair.
Yeah, this group has a tendency to hear information, kick tires, noodle it, let it marinate and whatnot. And so I would rather at least hear this presentation, at least get that out on the table. If there's notes, questions, and we do need, or we do deem that a work session is in order, if there's a number here that we are comfortable with Eileen, at least as a space holder in the budget, so we know that what was approximately what could be spent on IT, depending whatever way we go, I think that would probably be the best course through here. Does that work for everyone up here?
Okay.
Okay. So Todd, the
Excellent.
floor is yours.
Yes. Let me get, with all due respect, I know there'll be questions along the way. If you just wait till I get through this whole thing, so my brain can work through things, because I tend to lose focus once in a while. I'll try to get through everything. So back in 2021, we had before 2021, we had a managed service provider. Kin Technology at the time was our managed service provider, and they were a managed service provider for many, many years. Prior to that, we had like one in-house IT person. Back in, I remember Mr. Hansen taking care of the city's IT back in 1997. I worked for Cub at the time. My wife worked for the city. So I don't know if you guys remember Steve Hansen, but he handled the city's IT. And I think it was after that they went out, and then Kintech for many, many years has handled the IT. At around 2021, council had asked the city administrator at the time to look at our long-term contracts and go out for RFP to make sure that we were getting the best bang for our buck. We had a number of long-term contracts, and they said, go out and see what that looks like. And I was not a part of that discussion, so I cannot tell you all the decisions that were made, but the administration decided that it was best that they bring in IT in-house. And they hired 2 IT people, and they terminated the contract with Kin Technology, and then they bought all the equipment, all the software, and it operated in-house for a very brief period of time. I guess it's still technically in-house. And I will tell you, at that point, these 2 folks that we had internally were, unfortunately, got embroiled in the internal strife in the city, including, people saying they didn't belong there and it should have stayed contract. And they found themselves in a position where they didn't feel comfortable. I've talked to them, so I know this is what they thought. that they didn't feel comfortable their jobs were going to be here. And we lost two very, very good, very competent IT people. Luckily, I got Paul back on my transit advisory committee, so that it was good for me. But for the city, it wasn't good because he was an incredibly competent IT professional. When we lost them, we hired two temp IT folks from Robert Half. And then, of course, we lost city administrator, we lost the IT director, and the IT department floundered for almost a year. And so that is a mess. I can tell you right now, it's a mess. It's a financial mess. There's servers that need to be upgraded. I've been trying to get things put back together, certain things that were messed with that shouldn't have been messed with. We've got equipment missing. Things have not gone well in that last year. So today, where we are, is we need to figure out whether this is in-house or external, because we do not have the IT right now that this city needs. We do not have the support they need. Right now, I'm looking at my email every Saturday to see if there's IT tickets, so I can call a Kintech, which I have on a temporary contract, to send somebody to fix it. And I frankly don't have a lot of time to be doing this, and we really need to get this fixed sooner rather than later. So Eileen asked me in February to take this over and see what I could do to clean it up. And she asked me to go out for RFP, because that was the original request of the council, to determine what it would cost. So we took an RFP from the city of Madras, thank you, Madras, and we adapted it for the city of Canby. I then sent it to someone who I know is a director of IT at one of the cities that we're partners with, and he reviewed it for me, and he sent it back with his notes. We adopted his notes, and then I sent it to our attorney, and he approved it, and we sent it out. We only received 4 responses back. Of those 4 responses, only 2 were directly local. One was in Vancouver, and the other one is in California. Of those 4, 1 was completely disqualified because they did not meet the RFP. I then took the 3 remaining RFPs and I handed them off to 3 IT professionals. Again, the same individual from that city, one person who is currently temping for us at the PD, and another IT person. And each of them independently went through and scored the RFP based on the scoring matrix, sent me back the scores. I then took their scores, I averaged their scores, I sent them back to them, and then we met and we discussed the results. From that, we got one clear winner in that RFP process that easily could step in and take this system over and work it. One of the main things we wanted to get out of that was the cost. How much does it cost? The low bid was $300,000. The high bid was over $400,000. I gave you an average of 3 to 330 because the top 3, that's where they were. Of those 3, one of them had additional services that we probably would need that would actually push it beyond the 330. But on average, we're looking at 300 to 330,000 as a base. When I say as a base, what I mean is you're looking at the cost to do the basic administration, your computers, your servers, your cybersecurity, keeping your backups going, replacing things as they go along. I actually have these slides. I don't know how helpful they are. So that was the base. And then I went to our finance department and we looked at our current, we have current pay scales for PC technicians and our network administrator. And I said, if we put them at step 5, which is about halfway up the ladder, because you're not going to get anybody at step 1, realistically, what is the total roll-up cost for these folks? This doesn't include overtime. This is all their benefits. Plus their salaries, and it came out to about $310,000. So what you see, and this is just personnel. I want to emphasize that. This is just the cost of the people. Why is it just the cost of the people? Because this has been my experience working with contractors for about 6 years. It is better to own your equipment and software than to lease it from a contractor, because contractors change. And when the contractor changes and you don't own that equipment and you don't own that software, you either have to buy it or you have to transition your entire city over to that stuff. And it's messy and it's unfun. I did it up in Columbia County. We transitioned our maintenance staff. You have to offload all your vehicles, load them into a new system. It's incredibly expensive. It's very expensive in the transit system. There is a lot of overhead costs when you don't own the equipment. So the materials and services side of our budget stays the same. It is the same. We pay for our own Microsoft licenses. We pay for our own servers. We're going to upgrade our own servers. We're going to buy our own PCs. The contractor will be the person that tells us what we need to purchase. We'll purchase it. They'll do the installs. They'll maintain. They'll manage. But it's our equipment. We own it as the city. When we went from Kintec to internal, we had to spend, I think Eileen said about $108,000, actually more than that. But there was a lot of money spent to purchase services to upgrade our windows and so on and so forth. So it's an expensive proposition to not have your stuff in-house. So I'm just looking at personnel costs because my estimation is M&S will stay the same. Now, sometimes contractors can bring in their own software. They may. Most of the time that's monitoring software, like cybersecurity software or other software. We have all that right now. We use our own firewalls. We have that all set up. And so we may or may not want theirs. They can use ours just fine. Every single person who responded to the RFP is under the impression that the city will own the hardware and own the software. So the bids you get back is for their cost to manage our equipment, to manage our software for us, and to respond to IT tickets, install new servers, update things, back things up, basic IT work, if you will. I say basic. It's not anywhere close to basic. It's actually incredibly complex. All right, so in these baseline costs, there's some considerations. In-house, I only expect 2 employees. I don't believe 2 employees is sufficient, personally, but we did it with 2 employees. I talked to our previous network administrator. And what he told me is it can be done because your backups get automated. A lot of your right now, all our upgrades and our patches are automated. On Saturday early morning, our systems go down. They update everything automatically. The network administrator doesn't need to be there. That's the way servers should run. They should be set on schedules to properly update. And then there's alerts that go out to people on call just in case something goes wrong so they can respond to it. But for the most part, a lot of this can be automated. He did say the PD makes it a little more challenging. But in the budget, I have the option to continue with what we currently have, which is a person who comes in 10 hours a week to manage PD and just help cover PD. That's currently in our budget. I didn't take that out. I left that in there because we may be able to do it with PD in there and those 2 employees. I personally believe we probably should have 3 because if somebody's sick, somebody goes on vacation, somebody gets called out 30 times in the weekend, you burn them out, who's the backup? So that's always a challenge. There may be additional hardware software costs. Like I said, some contractors bring in their own and we can use theirs, whereas we have to purchase those. I don't foresee those right now, but I'm not the IT guy. I'm just the transit director / IT director / fleet director. And my expertise is actually on the software side of the IT world. Turnover and recruitment is expensive and it's not included. It is really hard to bring people on to a new system. They have to learn it. It takes time. Every system is unique. Every system is complex. Nobody knows our system. They know pieces of our system, but if you know anything about the IT world, it's huge. And there's so much equipment out there, and it's all different, and it's all configured different, and every place is unique. So when you hire folks and they come in, they have to learn the system. As you know, recruitment is expensive by itself, and then you have the ramp-up time for that person to learn the system. So those are costs that a service provider don't have because they have a much larger staff, and so it's easier for them to absorb those costs where we absorb those costs directly. We do that now with every single recruitment we have for every position, but that's a cost that's not built into that number. High-quality IT staff are difficult to recruit and expensive to retain. That's just a fact. We are a city. Most people come to cities for the benefits, not the pay. I mean, we have great benefits. Our pay is actually quite good, but the reality is that high-quality IT staff make a lot more money in the private sector than they do here, and so they are hard to recruit. They are hard to maintain. You have to give them good reasons to stay. I think we have a great benefits package. That's usually a fantastic reason, and make a good work environment they enjoy. That's usually how you retain folks with like that. It's hard to beat the private industry on price, but that also means you're trying to pull people away from a higher paying job to a lower paying job. It can be done, but it's not necessarily easy. So I want that consideration in there as well. MSP, the managed service provider, the average cost does not include expanding the employee base. So when you go out for a managed service provider, they want to know how many PCs you have, roughly how many staff they're supporting. As you increase in staff, that cost is going to go up because it's going to go up per PC. Because that's how they spec these things out. So, for instance, our prior contractor, we had a really good price. That price no longer exists even in their world, and that's because the city's gotten bigger, we've got more servers, we've got more stuff, and it costs more to maintain it. So as the city grows, the managed service provider cost is going to go up as well. Probably not by a lot, but I just want you to be aware that's not necessarily a fixed cost. That cost, that average cost, does not include major upgrades or major software expansions. Like, for instance, Paul brought us through the Microsoft 365 expansion. We did have a contractor that helped him do that, but he did a lot of that work by hand, including pulling people's mailboxes out of the old system, putting them into the new system. That's not included in this price. If we do major software updates, then we're either going to have to hire a company, or if we have this major managed service provider, we're either going to have to pay them to do it, or we're going to have to hire another company to do it and them to manage it. But it's not included in your average day-to-day cost. Unforeseen costs are likely. If a server goes down and it completely fries, and they have to now install a whole new server, that's not a standard day-to-day operational cost. That's an additional cost. Every single one of our bids had additional costs for additional unforeseen things. Certain after-hours things cost more than regular hours things. If you call them at 1 a.m. on Saturday because the PD needs their help, you're going to pay a little bit of a premium on top of that. That's just the way managed service providers are. You do the same with internals for the most part, but at the same time, that's when you look at these costs, it's not built into there. The addition of a coordinator. When we had a managed service provider before, we had an internal coordinator. The union will let you know that position should still exist, and that could be argued. However, I will tell you that we have a lot more systems than just our computers. We have our phone systems, we have our internet bills, we have our cell phones, we have website updates and stuff that the managed service provider, they don't deal with those things. Those are ours. They manage the IT system, and the phone system's not generally included in that. So that coordinator usually would handle those things. You would send in tickets to get your phone fixed, or, we get all that stuff through Direct Link, but somebody managed to work with Direct Link for our phone system. Somebody managed to work with the web developer to get the website updated when it needed to be updated, or helped other departments when they needed to get things posted. So Valerie did that for years. She handled that service. I don't have that in there because we could see how it goes without that. But I can tell you, I don't have the time to do those things. And my staff is already, Heidi already does every other job in the city practically, and I can't ask her to do these things. So I didn't put that in there, but I do believe we will probably need a coordinator to help us manage this contract, because I think otherwise it's going to be very difficult to keep on top of that. All right, so I put these together as best I can. It's not perfect. There are pros and cons. I will tell you that internal versus external are very well balanced. I gave you a recommendation. I'll explain my recommendation. I'm not necessarily married to it, but I'll explain to you why I gave that recommendation, because these are very balanced. It was hard to come up with pros, because you could come up with pros on both sides, and it's like those lists where people tell you to spell out the pros and cons, and they always come out to be the exact same length, so it doesn't matter. That's how I felt when I was trying to build this. In-house service, internal knowledge. Again, every system is different. So we have our own hodgepodge of computers, we have our own operating systems, we have our own firewalls. Those are different than the Oregon City's system, different than Westland's system, different than Lake Oswego's system. And so when you have internal IT folks, they have intimate knowledge of your system. They know how it's set up. It's just like a builder who builds a house. They know what's behind the walls. They know exactly how it's constructed, so they know best how to fix things. They never, you have to hire somebody else, but still, you understand my point. My point is that when you have internal folks that are working on the system, they can become intimately familiar with it, and thus they have more working knowledge of how it works. So they're able to fix things often faster. And we saw that with Paul. We saw Paul when he got really, really good with our system. He was able to very quickly adjust things, shift things, and change things because he had such intimate working knowledge of the way things were going. And that's pretty common with in-house. Employee stability. Now, this is, I know I said it's hard to retain people, but when you do retain people, you get the same folks. They're there long-term. The city is generally, we just retired someone who'd been here for 28 years. The city tends to retain people for long periods of time. So you get that stable environment. Contractors have people that come and go. Kintec, when the time I was here, I went through 3 different techs just in the short period of time we had Kintec when I was here. So contractors tend to have the ebb and flow of different techs, whereas we end up with that stable, same folks over and over and over again. Full system control and decision-making, I think that's true. Anytime you're in-house, you have 100% control over it, whereas contractors will always have ways they want things done, the way they think things should be done, and they're often hesitant when you ask them to do things that go outside of those scopes. There's risks involved. They try to manage their own risks, so you have a lot more control. And I find that to be true in the transit world as well. I have a lot more control. And again, I'm not asking to bring it in-house, but I have a lot more control in-house than I do with the contractor. I don't have any control over their employees. I go to the contractor and say, I need you to stop your employees from doing this. But it's up to the contractor to make those decisions. So when you have internal employees, you have a lot more control over the system itself. Concern for the city and the system is the number one driver. I find that in the city of Canby, most employees care very much about the work they do. They care about the city. It's very important to them. And so when you have internal employees, especially in a city like this, they care a lot about the city. Contractors, and you may disagree with me because you're going to tell me that contractors provide good service and this, that, and the other thing, but contractors are profit-driven. They've always been profit-driven. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in the business. If they don't make money, they're not in the business and they're going to be shut down. That's not a bad thing. If you're a contractor and you're not making a profit, you're a bad contractor. Okay? So that is one of their biggest drivers. Now, that translates to they try to do a good job for you because they want to keep you so they can continue to earn money, right? Because that's why they're there in the business. So we got great service from Kintec. Why? Because Kintec wanted to keep us as a business so they could continue to make money. Internal employees don't have that same driver. It's not as important. What's important is the quality of the work they do. Again, you may agree or disagree with me. I've been working with contractors for 6 years in transit. I guarantee you they're profit-driven. They try to provide me a good service. Do I get as good a service as I want? No, never will, because I don't have that level of control. More direct control over costs. Again, all contractors have overhead. They pass that overhead on to you. You have no control over that overhead. Internally, you have all the control over that overhead. You can make adjustments to your overhead in order to bring overhead down. When you go for a contractor, you don't have that control. And then this one, we're going to have, I believe we should have full ownership of all our software and systems regardless. But the truth is you can lease from a contractor, whereas if you're internal, you own it. I think we should do that regardless. All right, my internet connection is unstable. That sounds like an IT problem. Anyway. The managed service providers. One of the big selling points of managed service provider is they have knowledge from multiple different entities. So of the of the folks that we got bids from, at least one of them serves multiple cities. Most of them serve multiple cities. And so they have a wide breadth of knowledge. Some of them as many as 30 technicians in their pool. That's a wide breadth of knowledge you're not going to get from two people. They're going to be well versed in your system, but if your system does something weird they're not familiar with, they don't have that breadth of knowledge to be able to tackle it, so they actually have to call in external experts. Whereas these guys already have external experts because they're external experts in their own system. So that's a huge plus to a managed service provider. Reduced turnover costs. We don't care if they go away. That's their, internally, that's their problem. They send us a new tech. We don't pay for the costs for a turnover. So that's huge. Coverage for time off. Some of these properties or people that bid have, like I said, 30 employees. That's a lot of employees. They can cover weekends or vacations. When you only have 2 IT staff and one of them wants to go on vacation for 2 weeks, you only have 1 IT staff. And the way we have it structured, you have 1 network technician, 1 help desk technician. They don't cross over very well. Network is a very different animal from desktop. And so if your network guy goes out, you're trying to scramble for some sort of coverage, right? Because if the servers go down, you're calling him on his vacation, whereas your managed service provider, that's not an issue. If the guy who's normally here goes away, there's another guy backing him up or another guy backing him up, so on and so forth. Equipment and software that we'd have to purchase ourselves. Again, I believe we should own it, but if we don't, they can provide it for a lease. Usually we used to lease some of our servers, actually most of our servers, we leased them from Kintech. We paid them a monthly fee for those servers. We've since bought most of those, but that is an issue. That is a way a contract service provider is better. Knowledgeable planning for multiple sources. Another big pro to a managed service provider is because they work for multiple entities, they have the knowledge of what works, what doesn't work for the future. So they are a little bit better at planning some of those future things because they're able to look and say, we did this here, that didn't work, but we did this here and that worked. So if you guys are headed in this direction, we recommend this. They get that breadth of knowledge. Whereas your internal folks, it takes a lot more research and planning to figure those things out, and there's a little bit more trial and error that goes on there. Experience learned from other contracts. Just like I said, you've got multiple contracts. You don't usually discard that knowledge. You take that knowledge, you apply it to other contracts you have because it saves them money to learn once and not have to learn each individual place. So they're able to spread that knowledge around. So if you have a contractor who works here and Lake Oswego and something happens to Lake Oswego servers, they can make sure that it doesn't happen to our servers because they've just tackled it over there. And then overhead costs are spread over multiple contracts. And I know I said we don't have much say in the overhead costs, but the reality is when you hire an MSP that has multiple contracts, you don't pay 100% of their overhead. That overhead is spread out over all their contractors. So you end up with a lower overhead cost, whereas we have to pay 100% of our overhead, including internal overhead costs. All right. So that's that. Now, why? Then you look at the research. Melody was kind enough to call all the cities that were roughly our size and ask them what they had and what they didn't have. And I put that chart in there just for reference to show that most cities our size have their own internal IT and roughly what their budget is. That's just for your frame of reference. That is what's common. We are about in that realm. We have 18,000 something in the city of Canby. You'll notice that most people that are 16 and plus have their own internal IT department. So we would be somewhat unique, and I can't say we didn't call every city. I can't say we go across all the cities and know for sure what everybody's doing, but we tried to get a good sampling of cities that are close to our size to find out who does and doesn't have internal IT. And then my recommendation. It's really hard to make a recommendation because as you could hear me sell one side and then turn around and sell the other side almost as well as I sold the one side, I was very, very hesitant to put any recommendation in there because you could go either way, and I think the city would be very well off. I don't think there's a wrong answer here. The reason I said internal is because I believe, one, internal provides you more control. and over your IT, more ownership over your IT. And two, it just seems to be the way most cities are going, and unless all the other cities are wrong, then there must be something right in that idea. Again, y'all like recommendations? I made one, not married to it, but most cities our size have an internal IT. And frankly, I personally believe you get better quality. I've seen it in transit. When you bring transit in-house, you have more control of the quality improves. Anyway, there you go.
So Todd?
Yes.
Question on the chart that you put in there.
Yeah.
So as I'm looking at, I was really stunned that one city has 6 FTEs for their IT team. That's not my call, but I was surprised. Anyways, so looking at some of these smaller, I mean, like Central Point and Troutdale, I mean, Milwaukee, we're close to. So you've got IT personal services on the chart. That's what they've budgeted in this fiscal year's budget for those cities.
Last fiscal year's budget. We did this months ago.
Okay, last year's, okay.
And some departments, so like Wilsonville has 6.5 FTEs. They have a number of people under that. So it's not broken down as simply as one network technician and one help desk technician. You'll notice they have like director, GIA analysts, and so on and so forth. They have, Wilsonville's also got a far larger budget and more income than we have. But, Woodburn was surprising to me. But again, those 7 are spread out over multiple disciplines.
And Woodburn has actually decided to make a cost center out of this. So when I was in Mount Angel.
They decided to do what?
To make a cost center out of this.
Okay.
So when I was in Mount Angel, Woodburn provided IT support for the city of Mount Angel.
I got you.
So there's probably a little bit of that going on as well.
Okay.
And then you have oddballs like Molalla, who has a contract with their telephone system to provide their IT service. I know Molalla has a contract with the local logging company for their transit service and their local telephone system for their IT service. So they've got something strange going on in Molalla that I don't fully understand. So anyway, there you go. Given what I have, I have gone through the RFP process. I could bring in a contract. Well, we'd have to go through 2 reads in 30 days. I could bring you an ordinance next time to bring a contractor out in-house or on board. If that's the direction you want to go. Ultimately, I think Eileen is looking for your direction, but that is our recommendation.
Councilor Davis and then Councilor Patton.
Okay, thanks, Todd. And I know you're in a tough position here, and thanks for taking this on. Somebody had to do it.
But why me?
Yeah, exactly.
We should thank Heidi as well. She enables him to do this as well. So,
I fixed my phone in like 5 minutes yesterday.
Yeah, so.
All the other directors took a step back and Scott was.
That's what happened.
Yeah. So, is it fair to say the service provider would be Kentech? Is that who you're referring to?
That's not fair to say, no.
Okay, at this point, because you haven't put it out to bid yet?
I put it out to bid. I've already gone through the entire process, but I have not talked to the successful, the people that are, I've let go 2 of the contractors because there's no chance they would make it. I have 2 contractors left. I have not moved forward at all with negotiating with the actual successful contractor, because if you were to say, no, we bring it in-house, I don't want to get anybody an idea that they would.
Okay, so in the process, then you'll have to check on references and stuff like that. So you would have to.
We've already done.
Have you contacted Canby Fire and talked about Kentech services to Canby Fire?
I can't even tell you if Kentech was in the running.
Okay. Well, a provider then, okay. I can tell you they do a very good job if you want a reference check.
Sure,
But
no,
besides that, let me finish.
Yeah.
Okay, we let you finish. All right,
Sure.
so now it's time for you to listen.
Sure.
Okay, so we also, in regards to when we had a service provider prior to bringing on our own for a number of years, you stated a number of years, they must have done a pretty good job.
I can't.
And then about a month ago, everybody's computers were having severe issues here in the city. We didn't even have internet connection in our meeting room. Who repaired that? Who repaired it?
Who repaired it?
Yeah,
I
was
brought
it
in Kintech to repair it.
Kentech came in and resolved the issues for you, correct?
With all due respect, sir, this is a $300,000 contract, which means that by law, I have to go out for RFP.
Right.
Everybody has to submit their bid back. It has to be properly scored. I cannot look at somebody, I'm a fan of Kintech. I personally did not score any of the RFPs because I have a bias towards that company.
Okay.
Okay? So I personally didn't score it because of my bias.
Right.
So the RFP was fairly scored by 3 IT professionals. I can't tell you the results. I can't tell you whether it was them. I think they do a wonderful job. I like what they do. But I cannot guarantee anybody a contract with a city. They have to be successful in the RFP process, which has to be unbiased and fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was a service provider that repaired all the issues here at the city in the last couple months. It was a service provider who did that.
Correct, yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah,
I
right,
called
and
it-
they did a wonderful job.
They did a
And then we
fantastic job, yeah.
Then we had a service provider prior to bringing services into the city.
Yes.
And they were doing a good job as well.
That I can't,
Okay.
I don't know how well they were doing, but yeah.
Have you contacted Oregon City to see what happened to Oregon City, which they had their own IT staff and their system
I'm
crashed?
well aware of their cybersecurity issues.
The cybersecurity issues, they crashed and they had to bring in an independent to come in and fix those issues.
So did Clackamas Community College, so I'm well aware of those. Yeah.
Okay, and then in regards to, in your presentation, you also talked about the need of perhaps a manager or somebody to oversee this. And so you seriously be looking at 3 people rather than 2?
Probably in both scenarios, because I had also talked about a internal coordinator to manage that MSP contract.
Okay. Okay, and then if it was inside and we had an issue on the weekend, PD had an issue, I assume that would be overtime.
That would be a challenge, yeah. No,
That would be a
absolutely.
challenge. Then when they're off, that would be a challenge as well.
I'm not opposed to a contract, and I don't want you to think I am. I'm not opposed.
Right.
I don't personally, you're not going to hurt my feelings one way or the other.
Oh, I know. And all I'm saying.
And I will say that Kintech has been a wonderful partner for us.
Yeah.
I just can't, I simply can't say that they're going to get it because they've been good to us. That's not the way the RFP process works.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay,
I have to be fair and impartial, which is why I personally stepped out of the review process for the RFPs.
Right, and I'm more concerned about keeping the city operational.
Sure.
And with cybersecurity and all the issues going on today, and getting into personal records of our citizens, potentially that are in our system as well. We have a huge liability there. And I know we have a service provider in which we have to go through training every month on our computer in order to go through and meet the intent of our training for cybersecurity. And that's through an independent, a service provider. Okay, and I can tell you, there's no way that I could manage an IT department and be able to afford what we are receiving from a service provider at Canby Fire as well, and we're extremely happy with the service provider.
Sure, I appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilor Patton.
So, I think that I might be able to speed this whole process up with an idea that I have. But first, I just want to say a couple of things. First of all, I was going into this thinking that the best route would be to bring it in-house. I'm torn now. I think I'm always a fan of taking care of these things internally. Clearly, that is the case with the city attorney, but, like I said, I looked at the numbers and there's no need for me to push towards that. I, as a counselor, have real reservation. Counselor Davis, I understand that you have a really good relation with Kintech. and I know that they provided services to the city through the fire
A
station.
service provider.
Correct. For this, yes. You've named them by name several times, so we're going to go with that. As someone up here, that every time their name comes up in this process, it makes me cringe, because we need to look at this as in a very unbiased format. And so every time that comes up, I have reservation of saying, we need to go with a contract service. As far as having, here's my idea. Before we get into whether because, we all could sit up here and pontificate about all this stuff for the next 3 hours. And I think it might just be easier to do a straw poll of each counselor and see, are they for bringing it into service in-house? Are they for having it contracted, or are they on the fence? And if there's a majority of people through the straw poll that are, and Mr. Doofman, please cut me off if I go out of bounds here. If there's a majority that say RFP, we don't have to sit here for 7 hours and listen to each other talk about what's good or not. We just move forward with it. If there's a majority that says in-house, then, that's that. If there's a majority that says, I'm a little, if it's like some wishy-washy, some yes, some no, then we know we need to have 7 hours. So what is the council's thought on it?
Well, I'm going to take it a step back, because there was something put on the table before the presentation about hearing the presentation and having a work session on this matter as well, to get, if there was a need to get further or more details fleshed out or whatever. Does there still seem to be a need or a want for a work session to discuss this further?
It would depend on how many people are on the fence.
Okay.
If we need to lobby for our thoughts.
Because if there's 3 people or 4 people that say, go with a contract, what's the point of sitting for 7 hours and listening to me talk about why I want it in-house? And for me to listen to 7 people tell me why I'm wrong, right? I got better things that I can do with my time, and likewise you all up here. So I say we just rip the Band-Aid off and give it a try.
So you're for keeping it in-house?
Well, you haven't, are we taking a straw poll?
Yeah. Are you undecided?
At this point in time, I'm a little undecided.
You're undecided?
I was hoping you would ask me last, but I'll say I'm undecided at this point in time. But because it's a straw poll, I might change my mind, you never know.
Are you making notes?
I am making notes.
So did you run out of orange paper? You see a blue tonight.
Okay. No, I got orange in the drawer. Let's stay on track, please. So Jason is.
Mayor, just may I interrupt for 1 second? I feel like I should just answer Jason's, at least kind of just respond to his comment. Legally speaking, I have no problem with a straw poll. I think that, clients do that in different guises over different issues. That's just fine. I do want to say, just maybe for the record, clarify that, the council's not making any decision tonight about if in fact the straw poll says, let's do a service provider. You've yet to make any decision about that service provider. I do agree that, talking about a specific provider is you're not at that stage yet. But, so I just want to make that clear in case there was, any lingering question about that.
Okay.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. Herman.
I can see the benefits of both.
Okay.
I can see the benefits of both. I do agree in-house, you're going to have somebody that's more for the city and just be more personalized aspect to it. However, I feel like you may get more from outsourcing.
From a what?
From a managed service provider?
Yeah.
Okay.
So is that where you're leaning, or?
If I had to lean one way or the other, I would say service provider.
Okay. Council President Hensley?
Service provider.
Councilor Davis?
Service provider.
Why laughing?
I thought it was pretty clear.
Councilor Stearns?
I'm kind of for the service provider. However, I do like the idea of having a coordinator or somebody here at the city that at least can know enough about it to be able to either transition between service providers, or there's a danger of saying to some third party, take care of everything. It's been my experience that when you do that, they take care of everything. And, but, so I think there is a need to have either a director or somebody who is going to have some knowledge about what the provider is doing. So my thoughts listening to this is I like the idea of having at least somebody on the city staff that has some IT knowledge that to interface with the, but also, I see the benefits having because, and I don't know if I should say this, but my interactions with the IT here were not confidence instilling. In fact, the laptop given to me was completely useless, had no software, no nothing. I don't know what.
Hence the change.
There was any reason to even give me a laptop as far as that goes, because it's at home, weighing down something. But, so I think something needs to change. And I would like to have a much better, I'm just scared that Canby will be in the news next with, either some sort of ransomware or something like that. It's just, and so I think a good plan would be, one, to have somebody on staff that has a IT knowledge, and two, have a outside contract, because there's way more things. I speak as somebody who used to be in the IT business. I used to write software. I remember my first server we ever built turned into a porn hub accidentally after about a month, and we had to raise it and do it again. This was about 25 years ago, but still, it's good to have some outside knowledge.
Yeah.
So I'm in favor of the outside contractor, but
With a staff coordinator.
with a staff coordinator that has some good knowledge of how computers work.
Counselor Sassy. Since I'm the least time up here, I used to sit back there and our IT was fine. And then somewhere along the line, it went to pot. And I came in here yelling I couldn't watch it on TV, and then now I've seen more stuff that I'm up here. If I could get every presentation the way you explained it, well done. I was in-house at first, but now I'm service provider.
Okay. Yes, Counselor Patton.
So I agree with Counselor Stearns. If we do a service provider, there needs to be somebody internally to coordinate those other services. And I would say that if I'm willing to be flipped to a service provider, I strongly agree that we should have our own equipment. That the city should own the equipment, because if we do an RFP on this, we're going to have to do an RFP at some other time. Oh, wait. David, are you waving at me to shut me up? No? Okay, great.
No, I was just stretching, sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Percentage.
I don't want to get the city sued. We're going to have to go out for an RFP at some point in time again. And I, in my job and the various companies I've worked with, have been through 4 different system changes. And every time, it is an absolute nightmare. And it takes years for it to never be fixed. So that is my opinion on all of that.
Yes.
But I will just point out too, I know that people are dogging the whole process about bringing our IT service in-house. But I want to make this very clear. At the time that Canby tried to do this is when the wheels were ripped off of the bus. So it is not fair to blame anybody in the actual IT department for the woes that this city experienced during that period of time. That problem was self-inflicted. and we have been suffering it for months. Just, that's my 2 cents on that.
Councilor Maldonado?
I'm going to echo what you just mentioned. I do believe we should have a point person in-house and definitely own the equipment.
Okay. Councilor Davis?
Again, I just wanted to thank Todd for the work and for the presentation. And we're blessed to have you with the background and experience, in that. And thank you for the hard work and the presentation. I also look back at too in regards to what we're doing with our attorney service. We have multiple experts at our law firm in which we can draw from. And that's kind of what it is with IT too. We have multiple experts. And if somebody's off, we can get somebody on the phone, whoever that might be, to be able to correct those things. And you yourself in regards to, bus drivers too, right? You talked about that as well, to where if you spread it out more, you're going to have lesser cost than trying to do some of those things in-house.
It doesn't quite work as well with the bus
Right.
drivers. Right. So
But-
just because
Yeah, but I
their
see.
overhead costs are direct to your.
Right, but you see this time and time again in regards to spreading those, and you have experts like our law firm and stuff like that.
So in terms of, obviously not making a decision on anything right now, but I think you have,
I have the direction.
you got the direction
Yeah.
that you need in terms of, to be able to at least look at what work's already been done on the RFP process, have some numbers to work with for the budget, and potentially looking at what it would take to have a in-house coordinator of some kind as a position. And again, that may be a hybrid, half-time here, quarter-time here, quarter-time in something else, but.
Right.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Patton.
So as far as making the final decision, is that coming an ordinance essentially?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I've already been through the entire RFP process.
Okay.
I don't need to do anything else. The team has already scored all the RFPs independently. And I've already got at least one company I can approach and say, hey, you were this successful company, do you still want this? Because they had to wait for tonight. And if they do, negotiate, which shouldn't take much, and then present an ordinance to you to adopt that. So.
Look at that. My crazy plan saved us 5 hours. Every once in a while, crazy guy says something that makes sense.
Okay, Todd.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
For getting us to this
You're very
point,
welcome.
and we'll,
Excellent work. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
Let's see, that finishes up item 7, old business. Item 8, mayor's business. I really don't have anything. Clackamas County Coordinating Committee meets tomorrow evening. And then, our economic development team said earlier, first Thursday, we got a lot going on with time capsule and a new landmark tree being planted and activities. So come on down, hang out for a little bit. So that ends my deal, and I'll start with Councilor Patton tonight.
Okay, so first, Planning Commission met and they reviewed much of the same information that we did about the housing needs analysis, some things to keep in mind regarding the urban growth map, the comprehensive plan meetings. On June 4th at Baker Prairie Middle School, there's going to be a Spanish speaking summit for people who speak Spanish to be able to participate in the planning process. On June 20th, there will be an English version, which is going to be similar to what has been held in the past. And then on May 29th, the actual advisory committee meeting, the advisory committee, which I'm a member of, will be meeting to talk about next steps and stuff. On April 20th, I just want to say a big big shout out to the folks at Leviat. Leviat, which is a company in our industrial park. They had a crew of about 12 people come out with me, and we were able to spot weed and bark pretty much all of the Vietnam Veteran Memorial Park. The city staff ended up doing the last little bit because we thought there were going to be plants planted there, and they said no, there weren't. But then they all came over, and we were able to get the monument sign over by Safeway there weeded and cleaned up and ready. So that saved me a ton of time for taking care of that. So big thanks to them, as well as Ben, Parker, and Rolando from city staff who came in on Saturday to help shuttle the bark and all that. It worked out great. And then this is a project that I'm hoping to get council's permission to dive down further. So for those who attended the memorial for Frank Cutsforce, Tony Helbling had mentioned trying to rename the city temporarily in his name, and that kind of struck a note with me. Knowing how reserved of an individual Frank was, I think that would be a bit much. So I've been contemplating this for some time. I've reached out to the Cutsforce family as primarily, oh my gosh, where's her name? I've written it down here.
Kelsey or Kathy?
Kathy. And proposed to her that during the car show, we possibly rename the streets around Waite Park, Cutsforce, like Cutsforce Avenue and Cruisin Street, just for that weekend as a way to honor him during the Cruisin. And I've had preliminary conversations with Eileen and Jerry, and it sounds like this is something that is possible. So I am asking the council's permission to continue to go down this rabbit hole and check feasibility and cost and report back to you if it's something that we can actually do for it. Is that?
Great idea.
Okay. And so we'll go, I'll continue to work with city staff on that. Yesterday, I had been contacted kind of through Eileen by Josh Brown and Chris Wright from Waste Connection, who handle the garbage service. As you may remember, last year I conducted my own I conducted my own congressional inquiry of them and their services here at the city, is kind of what the mayor termed it as, and I thought that was very clever. We had a great, we talked for like an hour or so about ways that they have increased their service and have cleaned some things up, and they're going to be coming in for a rate increase here very soon. And so I just wanted to report, I've already given Eileen this update, but some of the things we talked about was I encouraged them to come prepared with a presentation of some of those, what it was then to what it is now as far as service standards and stuff, and actually see those improvements and have them presented to us. I suggested, they updated me on the customer service and changes they've made. We talked about the Recycle Plus program, which is the purple bin program. We also said, they said they had good success in their communication with Eileen and Jerry, which is great to hear. They asked me some general questions about things happening in the city. And then I asked about cracking open their franchise agreement. So in the franchise agreement that they keep getting, that they keep upping, there is a ton of stuff in there that they don't even do and that we don't require them to do anymore. There's things that they said, other like rules that have changed that really could be reflected in this agreement. And so I'm going to advocate again that not for this time, because their need to do this rate increase is imminent, but over the course of the next year, for the next time they come in, actually opening up this document, cleaning it up, and kind of modernizing it. So, because like in here, it still says that they will do the big cleanup day where everybody leaves their crap on the side of the road. And they haven't done that for years. And so to me, it makes no sense to have that in this contract for if a different city attorney or a different city manager comes in or a different council comes in and says, well, it says in here, you need to do it. So I think it would be good for us to do that. So that's my chat with them. And then one of the things that I just want to point out, and this goes along with one of your committees, please, if you have concerns about the safety of crossing the street in front of your house or anywhere near your house, do not take it upon yourself to paint a crosswalk on the road.
Yeah.
Okay? So the last weekend, I was driving down the street and I drove over one of these crosswalks and texted Eileen and Jerry to let them know of it. And then the city had to spend a bunch of money to cover it up. And the way it appears that it was covered up was to tar over it and then put sand on it. And I can tell you as a motorcycle rider, that is going to be a death trap. Because when it gets hot, it gets squishy and the motorcycle or the bicyclist can come out from under you really quickly, and especially when it's wet. So if you have concerns, please contact the Traffic Safety Commission and city and log those complaints, but do not take it upon yourself to just paint some crazy crosswalk in front of your house. And so with that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilor Maldonado.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay, Council President Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My liaison assignments are later in the month, as today is the 1st. But I did go to the school board meeting in April, and the school district does a CARE award with Kiwanis. Actually, Kiwanis does it for the school district. And the recipient in April was the art teacher from the high school, Ian Eilert. So we want to congratulate him on that. And speaking of the school district, Canby has lost a longtime educator in this town. He was a teacher for years, vice principal, principal. So Mike Zadiga passed away last week. And I just wanted to forward on the information. His funeral mass is this Saturday at 1:30 p.m. at St. Patrick's Church. All are welcome, and it'll be with military honors, as he was a veteran of the Vietnam War. And then there's also going to be another public celebration of life at the Canby High School Fine Arts Center Saturday evening, May 4th at 5 p.m. And the family asks that in lieu of flowers, they would appreciate donations to the American Red Cross in the way of blood, platelets, volunteer time, or cash donations. So that was my little report on the school district, and our thoughts and prayers are with the Zagava family. Lastly, I did attend a little retirement soiree yesterday. I wanted to, he's not here obviously because he's retired, but Jeff Snyder spent a long time here at the city, 28 years, right? I was going to say 29, but 28 years with the city, doing a fantastic job, and we will miss him, but wish him a very long and happy retired life. That's all I have.
What time on Saturday?
1:30 for the funeral mass at the St. Patrick's Church, 5 p.m. at the Fine Arts Center at the high school.
Wow. Yeah, it's a big loss.
No, didn't know.
I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Davis.
Thank you. Park and Rec, again, the athletic equipment or the fitness at Legacy is moving right along and is on schedule. Community Park completed for the most part with the bathrooms, and there's been a lot of volunteer work down there at the park. It's looking really good. Dodds Farm project is on time, and Maple Street Park is scheduled for July 1st start date in order to move forward with the turfing project. So great job to Jerry and his staff for continuing to move those projects forward. COGEO, City Administrator and Jamie are staying on top of COGEO project for the athletic fields. We have a meeting scheduled here very soon, and I know that Patrick Sampson has more to report to city staff on that as well. So that's going along really well. Jason, Waste Management, what's their official name?
It's like Waste Connections.
Waste Connections?
Yeah, it's Waste Connections, and they cover.
Yeah, I know. I'm just used to KU, but
Yes.
yeah. But anyway, just wanted to thank them, the Canby Chamber, Canby Fire, for Shredded Day. That went very, very well. It was a warm day that day. A lot of work on everybody, but they did a great job over there shredding, and they had to turn that truck around pretty quickly too because it got full. So they were able to dump it and get back very quickly. On the fire department side, I'm very, very pleased to announce that they have selected a new fire chief, which will start on December 15th. And that is Deputy Chief Matt Dale. He is working out the contract as we speak, and then I will be working with him for the transition for sometime in December. Matt Dale is a longtime resident of Canby Fire, or Canby, grew up here, went to Canby schools. He was an intern firefighter with us, worked his way up through the ranks, and in the last few years has obtained his bachelor's degree, so he's prepared himself for this position. He's been very, very active at all county level meetings in regards to EMS, and he's responsible for moving Canby Fire forward as far as our EMS service for the city of Canby. So Matt, I'm extremely excited for Matt. I know he'll do a great job. So I look forward to that so that I can retire in December. So I do look forward to that. So fireworks, thank you to Jason for the donation today. At the beginning of the meeting, he gave me a donation for the fireworks, so thank you to Jason. Cahoot, or Waste Disposal, whatever their name is, they announced that they are going to be a major sponsor for us, and they put up $5,000 towards the fireworks, so we will advertise them in direct link as our major sponsors. Canby Rotary, Canby Kiwanis also have donated a significant amount. So this year is pretty well taken care of, but we're going to be now working on $20,000 for the next year. And that's if the cost of the fireworks don't continue to go up. So that's good news. We will be having the fireworks display this year, and we're starting to work on next year as well. So that's going extremely well. Reminder of prayer breakfast tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Over at Cutsforth. How did I forget that? And Tyler already talked about the tree planting and time capsule. I hope everybody can make that. That should be super, super cool. And the mayor also told me about the 7-on-7 tournament is coming back to Canby again, middle of May. So we're working with the chamber to try to get the word out, have the chamber get the word out to the restaurants, because when we had that last time, we had a lacrosse tournament, the 7-on-7, a basketball tournament, and a softball tournament all going on in town. And I purposely drove around and looked at the restaurants. Every parking lot was full. Problem was, they didn't know the tournaments were going on. So the chamber is taking on, working on an activity log that they can email out to all the businesses so that they can staff up. So that 7-on-7 tournament, flag football, was huge. We had the #1 tight end recruit for college D1 playing in that out of Utah. And so we had teams from Florida, Utah, North Carolina, Washington State, Idaho, all over the place. I had no idea that it was so big, but 3,200 players that came through that tournament. So great job to those guys. And just a quick note, people wonder why I park out here, including Canby now.
Oh, you saw that?
That is not a fire lane. If you look at it, it says emergency vehicles, and that's where police and fire park. Just so people know, Greg.
Yeah. Until December. You can park in there till December.
Till December.
Until December. Yeah, then you got to park with us,
And our-
regular folk.
Until December.
Yeah, then I'll ride a motorcycle down.
Counselor Stearns.
All my liaison meetings are later on this month, so I will defer till next meeting to talk about those. I did spend some time with Bridging Cultures director this last weekend, and we're excited about having that activity on the, was it 4th of June? I got too many dates in my mind, and I think that's very important that we show up there. Gives us them opportunity to just see that we are actual, be able to interact with them. A couple things I just wanted to bring up. Todd was mentioning that he needed more money for the transit earlier, and I just wanted to bring out a phenomenon I've noticed probably for the last 6 or 7 years is that when I pay my transit tax, the check sits around for a long time. It's been about 2 or 3 weeks that it hasn't been cashed yet. So I'm just wondering if, and that's normal, and so I'm just wondering if there's not a much hurry to cash the checks for the transit tax, or maybe a system in place might be better. I mean, for me, it's fine. I got good record keeping, but a lot of people, if you don't cash the checks right away, they don't have the money in their account afterwards. I've just noticed that. So I thought that would be something to bring up, as well as it might be, as I mentioned last, tax guy, I'm tax season, so it might be a good idea to have the Canby Transit tax people in finance meet with maybe me or somebody else to go over the forms and stuff, because, to get experience with somebody who actually charges people to help them pay the Canby Transit tax. There's maybe some inefficiency there. That's just one of them that I've mentioned. So I just wanted to bring that up, just to remind everybody, not to embarrass anybody too much, but I don't know why it takes that long to run a check that give to the city.
Okay. I'm sure they will get on that right now. Counselor Sassy. I had no liaison meetings, but I'd like to thank everybody that we interviewed for applying for those positions, so thank you. So those are filled now. And I see Mr. Helbling's been busy talking to counselors about Frank's deal, so I'd love to talk with you after the meeting about that. So thank you. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you, sir. City Administrator's business and staff reports.
There we go. First of all, I have a few items. I just wanted to let you know that the ODOT presentation that was given last week is on the front page of our city website for people to click on, with a link to the Canby Paving Project website that ODOT put together. So if people want more information, they can go to the city's website and they will be taken to the ODOT website as well. So wanted to mention that. We are about a week away from giving you budgets. So what you're going to get is going to be a notebook that has the budget in it, mostly. A lot of the budget filler, if you will, the definitions, all of that won't be in the budget, but you will have the budget itself. So the essential pieces that you need for decision-making will be in your notebooks, and we will give you notebooks rather than relying on, you having to rely on them being online. I just felt that that just didn't work very well last year, so. And ODOT budget, and then we are getting close to having, needing to have an executive session on the hotel development, so stay tuned for that as well. So
On which one?
on the hotel development,
Okay, thank
so
you.
stay tuned on that. That's all I have.
Great, thank you.
Eileen, when did you say our budget meeting is?
May 15th,
Okay.
23rd, and then May 16th?
May 16th.
May 16th.
23rd,
Yes,
and if
and the
needed, the
23rd, and then if needed, the 30th.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Okay. Next opportunity for citizen input. Anyone wishing to opine on tonight's evening? Seeing none, I'm moving on. Action review.
You approved the consent agenda. You approved ordinance 1622 to be sent for the second reading on May 15th, 2024. You adopted Resolution 1403 and Resolution 1404.
Great, thank you very much. Last time on this agenda is to adjourn, but before I make that motion, just to let everyone know that following this meeting, we have another meeting, and that will be of the Urban Renewal Agency. So if you are hanging in there and want to stick around for that one, please feel free to do so. If not, it will be recorded. All right, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Moved?
Moved, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Canby, we will be back after a brief break. Yep. City council meeting is
is the Canby Urban Renewal Meeting for May 1st, 2024. I'm going to, this is my colleagues, we'll just call this call to order and already did the pledge and such. So just wanted to note, for those who have looked at the agenda online and whatnot, resolution number 24001 is removed from the agenda for this evening, as it kind of wasn't complete yet, and so we will visit that again when it's fully baked. So I just need somebody to bring a motion for the consent agenda.
Madam Chair? Or do you want to do it?
No, go right ahead.
I move to approve the consent agenda. And do I need to read all those off
Yep.
individually? A, approval of the minutes from the November 15th, 2023 Urban Renewal Agency meeting. B, appointment of member Bert DeGraw to the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee with a term ending June 30th, 2024. C, appointment of member Kim Wigan. Is that? Wigan, to the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee with a term ending June 30th, 2025. D, appointment of member Darrow Polson to the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee with a term ending June 30th, 2025. Appointment of member Lee Wiegand to the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee with a term ending June 30th, 2026. And F, appointment of member David Tate to the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee with a term ending June 30th, 2026.
Second.
Let's moved by Commissioner Patton and seconded by Commissioner Maldonado to accept the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the November 15th, 2023 Urban Renewal Agency meeting, appointment of member Bert DeGraw to the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee to term ending June 30th, 2024, appointment of member Kim Wigan to the Urban Renewal Agency Committee meeting with a term ending June 30, 2025, appointment of member Darrow Paulson to the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee with a term ending June 30, 2025, appointment of member Lee Wigan to the Urban Renewal Agency Committee with a term ending June 30, 2026, and appointment of member David Tate to the Urban Renewal Agency Committee meeting with a term ending June 30, 2026. All those in favor?
Aye.
That passes 7-0. That is the end of our agenda this evening.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to mention that we did pull the resolution off the agenda. The next budget, Urban Renewal Agency, we will have this resolution back on the budget. We will have the approval of the alleyway project. The city council will also need to act on that because it includes, it's a one big proposal that includes Schedule A and B are city projects, and Schedule C is Urban Renewal Agency projects. We need to give you an annual report on the Urban Renewal Agency, and then, of course, schedule budget adoption as well when we're ready for that. So I'm kind of thinking we could kind of roll these all up into one meeting, so.
Okay, that would be good. Okay, well, and also I wanted to mention, colleagues, resolution number 24001. There were a lot of questions, so I would think it would behoove us to email myself and Eileen with the questions you have regarding that resolution, so that she has a better opportunity of bringing it back to us fully baked, all complete, or at least more complete than this is, so that we can just whittle away at some fine tuning, okay? So when would you need those questions by? This is Wednesday, like Monday, or?
Yeah, if you could get them back to me within the
End of the weekend?
end of the weekend. Yeah.
Okay.
By early next week, that would be
Is
great.
fair? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I will take a motion to adjourn. I heard Maldonado first. Who wants a second? Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Maldonado and seconded by Commissioner Stearns. It's a non-debatable motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, good night, Canby.